I'd like to welcome everyone to the April 5th, 2010 meeting of the Goffstown Board of Selectmen. If we would all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. I'd like to welcome our public tonight. Thank you, Dan. Dan Cloutier is here, Chairman of the Budget Committee. Dan, myself, and Sue met earlier just to talk about the Budget Committee process as we go into the budget season, and I'll go over that a little later under committee reports. Our first order of business is the acceptance, with or without corrections, of the minutes from March 29th. Do I have a motion?
Motion to accept the minutes from March 29.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any corrections? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, that's 4-0-1. And that was Dave and Steve Fournier, 4-0-1. Sue had to step out, and unfortunately Catherine was ill, so I will take, actually, would somebody mind just taking very brief minutes? In terms of announcements, we have a few of those. I'd like to read those. Thank you for keeping an eye on our property during our vacation. We are very appreciative of the attention given by Officer Shabbat and his fine officers of the Goffstown Police Department. Please let us know when the fundraiser for the Police Athletic League comes around. Sincerely, Frank and Janice Hobbs. And just wanted to thank Officer Shabbat. We have another one. This was addressed to Carl Corum, our DPW Director, from Susan Olson, the Government Affairs Advocate for the New Hampshire Municipal Association. It reads, Dear Mr. Corum, on behalf of the New Hampshire Municipal Association's municipal members, I would like to thank you for taking valuable time out of your very busy schedule to attend the March 23rd, 2010 public hearings in the Department of Environmental Services proposed stream crossing rules held by the New Hampshire House Committee on Public Works. As was clearly heard during the hearings, and despite the nearly 3 years in the making, the rules have a potential to dramatically increase costs to New Hampshire cities and towns, not to mention the state's own Department of Transportation, road and highway maintenance projects and programs. Sometimes it requires that common sense and experience be brought to the table before hypothesis and analysis and isolation can be tempered. And your common sense and experience are what we have appear to have turned the tide and resulted in DES being asked to take another look, this time with direct input from those of you who have had to live with the consequences of these rules. Thank you again for making such a difference. Kindly, Susan Olson. Lastly, this was an email that was sent to Police Chief Patrick Sullivan, and it states, I received a call from Mrs. Robert Trinity from Four Waters Road this afternoon concerning the flooding. She could not say enough about the assistance and communications we, the CERT team included, have had with her. She was moved to tears while expressing her gratitude. Another great job there. Okay, now is the time.
We have no sound.
We're recording the sound. The sound is not going out live.
Okay.
But when we had video, when we didn't have video, we had some?
Yeah.
You want to zoom in on this? We'll make a little sign, no sound or something. Do they know that there's no sound?
They won't be able to hear anything, so I'm pretty sure they'll know there's no sound.
Dick is
Your
working
lips are
on
moving.
it. Can you put a
Yeah.
crawler?
Can you put a,
No,
no.
we can't. For some reason we've got no internet down here. Here it's not connected over, so I can't keep it.
All right. Now is the time for anyone for public comment. All right. 6:30, by the way, we have an appointment, and at 6:40 with two Eagle Scouts regarding their projects. So we'll head right into the town administrator's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The meeting schedule's light for committee assignments this week. HDC is Wednesday evening, and Thursday evening is planning board, and our new planner did start today, so he will be attending both meetings. Derek will attend HDC also with him, and introduce them, and, I think Patty will be on the planning board meeting with them on Thursday night. Consensus folder tonight is AP warrants, letter to the New Boston Town Administrator, right to inter for Weldon's at West Lawn Cemetery, section 1991, number 7. Allen's at Shirley Hill Cemetery, section 2, lots 41A, 42A, 43A, and 44A. An event permit application for Mary Lou Preschool for a Touch a Truck event, May 16th.
A motion to accept the consensus folder
So moved.
by Mrs. Selectman Devanza. Anyone give a second then?
Second.
Seconded by Selectman Fournier. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Next would be assessor recommendations.
Yes, sorry, I got 2 emails saying we didn't
I
have
could-
audio.
Okay.
Assessor recommendations, elderly exemptions, map 6, lots 22-118, 22-35, and map 37, lot 22. Veterans tax credits for map 6, lot 22-24. Intent to cut on map 3, lot 28, and current use land use change tax lien release for map 5, lot 56-3.
Okay, I need a motion to accept the assessor's recommendation. That's by Selectman Devanza. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Selectman Campusano. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
5-0.
Can I ask you to repeat the motion on the consensus folder, because I forgot I'm taking
We
minutes
have that.
tonight.
David Pierce made the motion.
Thank you.
Selectman Fournier was the second. It was 4-0-1.
Follow-up regarding off-site improvements for Wallace Mass Road. The board had discussed this last week, and the condition of approval was a fair share of the estimated improvement costs based on updated transportation study numbers for both the Wallace-Worthley Hill Roads intersection, and then the Wallace-Mass Roads intersection, McFarland-Johnson estimate. At that time, it was calculated developer would pay 25% of the upgrade to the Worthley-Wallace Road intersection, and 2% of the upgrade for Wallace-Mass Road intersection. I believe that's coming back to the planning board for an extension soon, or did it already come?
I don't know, it might be on the agenda.
Okay.
I mean,
That's an
we
F,
were basing it on.
that's an FYI.
Right.
Right.
Also, we are getting ready, the budget has passed for the replacement of the roof at Town Hall as well as the police department. And, staff has taken a look and suggested that we probably would wanna take the chimney down, to below the roof line. We don't use it anymore, it was taken out, the boiler was taken out in 1989, and so that chimney hasn't been used, and, water is leaking in. Sound is back on. Water is leaking in at the roof at that point, and they're suggesting we cap it unless you see any future use of that chimney, and if there was a future use, we'd probably have to upgrade it anyway.
Any objections from any board members with regard to removing the chimney below the roof line? Not hearing any, that's,
Okay, we'll go with that one then.
proceed.
One less thing we have to worry about maintenance and leakage.
And we are also working on a RFP for the clock tower. The clock's fine, but the tower around it is in disrepair, and once before we went out for an RFP on that, and we have to be a little more specific because there's a wide range of what you can do up there. But we want something low maintenance up there because we don't get up there that often, as can be seen. I think the last time was like 10 years ago. And the railings and the finial, actually, one of the finials blew off at the last windstorm. So those will probably have to be remade. It appeared those were rotted out, so.
I assume we'll do bid specs for that?
Oh, yeah, we're gonna do an RFP.
Okay. Would you mind assisting, since that's kind of your area of
No, not a
expertise?
problem.
Okay, is the board okay with Phil, since that's his area of expertise, to work with with Sue on the bid specs for that? Okay. Thank you, Phil, appreciate it.
And that's all I have for public session.
Okay. We're going full steam ahead here. I passed out, this, it's a draft, and that's kind of goals and strategic plans for 2010. I came up with this, today, as I know that we're trying to get a meeting together to discuss what our goals are gonna be, but knowing that time is kind of the essence for many of us, I kinda jotted down some things. This is a draft, it's a working copy, we can cross things out, choose not to do some of these things. Some of them are mandatory, however, so I would just assume we go through this. And our first is a collective bargaining unit negotiations with both police, DPW, fire, and police dispatch and records, which is our newest bargaining unit. And this is my opinion, I believe we will need a non-meeting or a workshop with department heads to review the prior contracts for any management or labor issues that may have arisen, whether it be through grievances, et cetera, over the last couple of years. Review our past 5-year wage benefit costs in comparison to cost of living in other communities. And we get that information through the LGC salary comparisons. Develop consistent priorities, create realistic negotiation schedules and deadlines for budget committee submission for the 2011 warrant. So with that in mind, I mean, we want to make sure that we're in compliance with obviously statutory law in which these things have to be agreed to, but also in fairness to the budget committee, they need some time to kind of digest some of these things as well. And we're going to work with Dan Cloutier, chair of the budget committee, to try to get some dates together, and then perhaps we can just talk about that with the bargaining unit members so that we're all clear on when our deadlines are, so that we're not up against or we don't bypass a deadline. And then for all of these I put other, so I don't know if there's anything else that we want to do.
I would just add that our first collective bargaining agreement, we have to have a first meeting by May 31st with the fire collective bargaining unit. The others are by July 1st.
Okay, May 31st is with the fire, okay.
And by July 1st with DPW, police, and police, yes.
Okay.
Question.
Yeah.
Just a procedural, and we may have to talk about this later. Are there things that can be discussed together, common items? In other words, do we have to have separate, obviously there are items that have to be dealt with individually with the individual bargaining units, but are there periods where we can combine common items and streamline and deal with as a group? Or do we need to?
I don't know.
That would be difficult.
I don't think we can. I think that our workshop can talk about consistency,
Okay.
which I think is important.
Mhm.
But I'm not so sure that we can bring them all together and say, okay, here's what we're offering per se. I don't think we can do that.
Okay.
Simply because we're negotiating with that individual bargaining unit,
Okay.
and part of the ground rules would be that only their representatives
true,
and ours would
right.
be on the table,
Right.
so. Next is our Human Resources Ad Hoc Committee, for which Selectman Fournier is our liaison. Create town HR committee for non-union employees, venue to generate dialogue between the board, department heads and employees with regard to total compensation, working environment, recognition, town's fiscal position. So again, this is kind of a two-way feedback where certainly we want our employees to kind of, tell us what are some of their concerns with a variety of issues, and also for us to communicate back with them in terms of what the town's financial picture may look like, and just to create some open dialogue. And I know, Steve, you're working with Sue on starting to get some dates together. Is there anything else that we want to discuss there? We're good? Next is performance reviews for department heads. Administer department head evaluations to town administrator, police chief, fire chief, DPW director, and Parks and Rec director. The only unique one here is the Parks and Rec Commission chair will be an integral component of the Parks and Rec director evaluation. And I say that because others do not have commissions. There is a solid waste commission per se, but I think it's pretty clear that the DPW director is managed or supervised by the board. Technically, the Parks and Rec director is as well, but it's a unique relationship with that the board shares with the Parks and Rec Commission, which makes them, I guess, a pretty equal stakeholder at the table with regard to performance evaluation. I will send out what I had sent out last year with regard to some of these generic appraisals, but my thought was to have the selectmen's reps to each department review them with their department head, take notes as to what changes they'd like to have in them. It's pretty generic and it's very administratively oriented, But if there are some specifics, then just jot down some notes, and then we have to start somewhere. I don't think that any of these things are perfect documents, but in my opinion, our administrator and all of our department heads require, some degree of feedback, and we need to start talking a little bit more goal-oriented, with the hope of, reviewing this with them at a 6-month mark and then at the end of the year. Any questions or comments on that?
For this particular goal, is the goal itself to develop the tools or to start the performance evaluation?
Start it. I think it's a little bit of both. I think we have a template to work with. I think Sue's you had in the past. It's really not, yours is kind of the easy one. But it's police, fire, DPW, and the Parks and Rec director, which are unique, they're different. And that's why I think it's important for each selectman's rep to go back and say, okay, here's our copy, add to it what you like, what don't you like.
I had passed those out when you
Right.
had concluded last time, so they are all
And we'll get you copies of that electronically.
When is the performance evaluation period, from to?
I think we would like to do it personally, I think a good timeline would be sometime in May to May, so it'll be from May, because
What's the current one then?
there really isn't a current one. But I think it should, fall, to me personally, July 1st is our fiscal year. It's usually when we give out our, cost of living, et cetera, yeah. So we can do it then, or we can do it as a calendar year and tackle it that way.
On an anniversary date, then you're doing it separately.
Are you gonna do periods along that cycle, where you meet like a mid-cycle, or are you gonna do it by quarters or thirds?
I would think
What was
in the
your
middle.
thought process? So
I think it's,
you're thinking two meetings,
That's the goal.
mid-cycle and
Right.
end of cycle?
and it's not me, I just threw some of these things out. I'm just trying to generate, some discussion here. Does anybody have a good idea in terms of timing?
You're asking us to fine-tune the performance criteria by which we would be doing the ratings.
Correct.
Isn't that normally done at the beginning of the performance evaluation
Correct.
period?
Right.
And you said that period starts in June.
It would ideally, it would start in July 1st, okay? But I think, whenever you establish it, you'd probably want that to happen in May or June, so you've already, I guess what I'm trying to say is, if I gave you,
So
the template, and now you're gonna go back to your department and say, okay, I'm gonna add this, delete this, and this is what it's gonna be, and the board is okay with it, then this is a document that is gonna be in effect on July
So
1st.
it's the criteria that we would want to be in place.
Correct.
Thank
You got it.
I understand.
Okay.
Just from a practical point, if we spend several months creating that document, is it conceivable that, or would we evaluate someone a month later?
I guess
Or should we have it in place for a period of time?
I was hoping to have it in place by July 1, which would mean that we have a short time period, but we've seen this thing, 4 of us have seen it now. I've been talking about it for almost 2 years. So my thought process was that we could tweak it. We know it's not gonna be perfect, but it will afford some opportunity for feedback from the board to the department head. And then, in terms of the 6-month process, the way that I envision it is that we would all have an opportunity to evaluate the department head. If you did not know how that department head does on a particular item, it would be not applicable. Comments would then be collated by the rep. So if it's David's department head that he is the liaison for, we would send all that to him. He would collate it and then have a conversation with the department head about, feedback, and then it's a two-way thing. The department head would then come back and we would hear some of that feedback as well, as to what's going on. Is that all right?
So you want to do the evaluations in what month?
Well, it'll be, if we start it in July, that's another thing too I wanna talk about is timing, because obviously you wanna do these things when there's not a whole lot of other stuff kinda going on.
Gotta have it on his calendar.
Correct. So you would be talking December. Right. Okay, next was, communications with the public, and we've already started a lot of these already. Revamp the town website and allow departments authorized users to update content as they deem necessary. Emphasis on the website should be placed on adding content with regard to common questions to allow citizens the opportunity to obtain answers 24/7. And I think we're already starting in that endeavor with our new website. Last week, I talked to the board about directing the town administration to create a monthly executive summary of all important decisions made by all town committees. The executive summary will be distributed to all members of town committees and department heads the second week of every month. Town administration will create a template for use by all committee chairs to submit their activity the prior month for ease in creating the summary. So, pretty easy, it's gonna be a copy and paste for the most part, of email, and then, all town committee members and department heads or anybody else who might benefit from it would get it. The idea here is that, the more knowledgeable our committee members are on a variety of topics, the better off we're all gonna be. And sometimes reading through, especially our selectmen's minutes, they could be 20 pages long. And it would be nice, even just to get a quick snapshot of the actions that we took, what are some of the hot button issues, and try to tackle it that way.
Could those be posted?
Yeah, I don't see a reason why not. That's another easy thing for the public too. Again, if you don't like any of these, I'm not offended by it, so, Board of Selectmen would host 2 to 3 meetings of all town committee chairs or their designees to discuss common concerns. We used to have an all boards meeting, and, I'm not sure how productive, we can still do that, but I'm just trying to kind of create, some, active discussion, and I think that whether these summaries, executive summaries work, or it's a combination of both, is trying to increase communication. It's difficult when you talk to members of other committees about some things that you think that they should know about, and they don't. We're in the position where we seem to be the hub of the information, and I think we need to get the information out to the spokes, and, I don't know. You giving me a look?
No, just listening.
All right.
Someone's locked up.
I'm sorry, it's just that's what we hoped when we had public access.
Okay.
And you know how many years later we have the same issue.
Okay. Board of Selectmen or their designee will author a monthly column in the Goffstown News, and I did speak to the editor today, and Sarah said that if we wanted to, we could even have space in the paper bi-weekly if we so choose. So, they're very much encouraged, they really wanna do that, so it's just a matter of ironing that out. And the other issue that we would like to contemplate, again, this might be a little bit more time consuming, is our either Board of Selectmen or designee will host a monthly TV show highlighting important issues with the goal of each department would produce at least one show per year to communicate with the community. I don't think that's overly, I don't think that's too much of something to ask of a department head to produce one show a year.
What are you looking to have in the show? I mean, what are you trying to?
I want, just to try to convey what services they may provide, or what are some of the, we have some citizens who do not know, perhaps what Parks and Rec programs that we have available.
So you're looking for an overview of what the department does?
Yeah, to a degree, or, if we're talking about, Department of Public Works, what are some of the challenges that we have? And there's a lot of people, don't know, exactly how many miles of roads we have, and what are some of the unique, challenges that face our DPW or our police or fire departments, apparatus, maybe, and I remember, I think it was Peter Georgantis did something, and Johnny Surratt, they did some of their shows, so,
Johnny About Town or something?
Yeah, exactly, but something, I think that was helpful in letting people know, what are some of the issues that are going on.
Could also be residents
Yes.
emailing comments in while the show is
Yeah.
being broadcast.
Next one was, I kinda liked,
That's something that would be appropriate for the criteria
yeah,
we were discussing under the previous bullet,
the,
public communications.
The next one was, each department would survey the community every 3 to 5 years with regard to the services they perform, community expectations, use of services, et cetera. I really like what the police department does, and they do theirs every 3 to 5 years, don't they? More than that?
Used to be every year.
Every year, okay, but they really kind of spearhead that. Parks and Rec did it last year. And then explore technology, you know, maybe we can do some of that, using the internet or through a combination of, you know, paper forms for those who do not have computer access. But personally, I think it's healthy to, you know, take the pulse of the community with regard to the services that we're providing. We think we know what the community wants, but it doesn't hurt every once in a while to find out, you know, what they want. And last, which I did not put on here for other, is PEG on Demand is now that we are official, and I want to thank Andrew for helping us with that agreement, but PEG on Demand allows any citizen with internet access to watch any of our meetings that are televised in Goffstown. And shortly, I'm not sure when that will happen, but we're going to be able to go and drill down to a particular agenda item. So if we're talking, say, new business, Andrew will make a note as to what time in the broadcast, you know, we talked new business. That person can click on that, and they'll go right onto that segment of when we discussed it. So, you know, from not only reading minutes, but also from using PEG on Demand, I think we'll be able to help communicate better with the citizens. The next goal is management of large projects, and we have several large projects that require our oversight and our involvement. Mass Road Sewer Project, the Wallace Road and the Mass Road Roundabout / intersection, Mass Road Green Drainage Project, our road program, and lastly, the Lynchville Danis Park water hookups. If there are other large ones that I have forgotten, then we can add those in. Nick, you weren't here last week, but what we talked about was having Carl furnish us project status reports on the above. We haven't really talked about in terms of the time element of that, whether it be monthly or based upon predetermined milestones, you know, within the project. But they would focus in on the timeline, where we're at on the budget for that particular time. Are there any unanticipated problems or successes that we've had?
I had developed a template that we used about 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago, that we started with DPW, and kind of things happened in town and kind of lost track of it, but there was something that did just that.
Okay.
It identified the projects, what percentage completed it was.
Okay, if
budget
you
issues.
wouldn't mind, you could, if
Dig
you
that
still
up
have
and-
it.
Sure.
You could forward it to the rest of us and send it to Carl. If that'll work, that's great. What we're trying to do is, if we know hypothetically that the Mass Road Green Drainage Project is going to take 4 months, then every month we would expect, you know, let's just say that this particular project was going to be every month would be, you know, quarter complete. We know a lot of projects aren't like that, but when Carl gave us that status report, we would like to know that all the things that we expected to have been done were done, and if they weren't done, then why weren't they done? If we're ahead of schedule, that's great. If we're behind schedule, that type of thing. Yeah, I think that kind of, and again, same thing applies with our budget, and I think this gives a little bit greater accountability. We as elected officials get a lot of questions about major projects, and it would be nice for us to be well educated as to what are some of the concerns that are out there. With the board's permission, I'm going to stop right now, and we'll reconvene on this. But we do have a few guests which I'd like to take. First, we have Mark. Is it Beats?
Yes.
Okay, welcome, Mark. If you'd like to, please join us at the table. And Mark, we know that you have an Eagle Scout project, and you're going to be talking to the board about that.
I actually have packets for everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if you could just state your name and your address for the record.
Mark Beats, 9 Lamson Ave, down,
From Troop?
in Droop 99. Yes. You all just got the maps of my Eagle Scout, or my proposed Eagle Scout project on Moose Club Park Road. It's part of the Goffstown Rail Trail, and they're looking to have a bulletin board constructed, some loam put in, and some fencing put in to help, I guess, separate it from the surrounding areas and to keep it more beautiful and clean. There's then construction plans for the bulletin board, which are provided by Fish and Game. And I guess there's more than one of those on the rail trail. I know there's another one being proposed as well. I have a full lumber cost estimate from Lowe's on the construction bulletin board. And what's not reflected in the total is that they've offered to give me 10% off pending the approval of it as a project. But that's obviously all pending. And I have site work pricing, which for 4 yards of loam and 2 bags of grass seed, which should cover that area. I think it's 4 inches of loam. And I'm working on getting a full donation for trees for that area. Because one of my friends owns a large nursery and they said they could handle that. And actually, I think I might have the donation request form. Then there's a request form, which I guess wasn't submitted on time with the normal thing. We missed with the agenda request.
All right. Are there any, seems to be very thorough, Mark, we appreciate that.
I tried.
You did a very nice job. Any questions for Mark?
For full disclosure, in my role as the project manager for the Friends of the Gulfstown Rail Trail, I will be the community oversight for this Eagle project.
Yeah, I believe that's in the
Sure,
request form as well.
I just need to state it to the public and to ensure that it's done according to the construction plans, and that I would, or my organization would sign off on the acceptance of that project when it's done. In your location diagram, you see a proposed parking lot. That is just a conceptual plan, not in concrete. But between the town engineer and I, we had to have some idea where a parking lot conceivably could be built so that the bulletin board would be placed in the best location for considering future activity.
All right, any other questions?
Yeah, oh, go ahead.
What type of items will the bulletin board?
At this particular location, it will be the entrance, the first public road trail users will see as they enter Gulfstown from Manchester. As many people know, we hope that this summer Manchester will put the pedestrian bridge over the former railroad trestle at Kelly Falls. So beginning next fall, we're going to have visitors into our town. This is the first public road they'll come to. They ought to be able to see information about the rail trail, where it goes to, maybe what the facilities are to the left and right.
Where exactly is the sign going? I apologize, I see where the parking lot is, but I'm
You
trying
see it's like right there.
Yeah, it's fairly small.
Is it by the parking lot, I take it that's where?
That's in the green area with the.
It's in the edge of the green
Oh, I
area.
apologize,
Yeah.
now I can see, okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right, well,
When do you turn 18 that this project must be
June
done?
24th.
June. So this must be completed before that date,
Yes,
and you feel comfortable with that timeline?
I do.
Okay. And for the board, his project is under $5,000, so we're entitled to accept it.
I'll need a motion to that effect.
Motion to accept the Eagle Scout project donation?
Is there a second?
Yeah.
Second by Selectman, you got two, second to Van, so.
I'm sorry, I had one other.
Your time is up, I'm
All
sorry.
right. Maintenance of the sign, how does that work out after, as far as the maintenance of the sign?
It is transferred to Friends of Goffstown Rail Trails there.
Okay. All right, I'm
Not
good.
that they were gonna give you the Windex and the wipes.
That's,
Selectman Corr, you have any other questions?
that's it.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
That's 5-0.
Very nice.
Once again,
Thank you very much.
Mark,
Thank
for
you
a
very much.
Very good presentation.
Good luck.
Thank you.
All right. That's one down. Next, I'd like to welcome Henry McGibbon. Some of us know Henry, welcome.
Yeah, I was here just last week too, but on another project. This is totally different now.
Thanks to Mr. Pierce, I assume?
Yeah, mentioned it to me after about, cause that other one that I proposed before is just gonna take way too much work just to get it approved, even if it will get approved, so I'm probably not even gonna deal with it. So this seems like a lot more better project for me to choose. It'll help benefit the rail trail. It's gonna be right in front of Parks and Rec. We're gonna build a sign, kind of the one like right by Glen Lake. There's also gonna be like a 12-foot by 4-foot footbridge that crosses the ditch right there in front of Parks and Rec. And a lot of the diagrams are already done, like the location of it, and then all the building diagrams for the sign and stuff like that. There's already a material list made for the bridge, and over this last weekend I wrote down all the materials that I'm going to need to build the sign. I also have the estimated cost of the project. The bridge material is going to cost around $640. The sign material $460, and then just labor cost for 80 hours at $10.67 an hour is $850. And then the estimated total cost of the project is $1,950. So I think that's just basically the overview of the project that I want to do.
And, Henry, you're from Troop?
Troop 99.
99.
Sorry.
And when do you turn 18? This is the due date for your project.
Not this December, but the following December.
So you have all of this construction season to do this.
Yeah, I have plenty of time to do this.
Any other questions?
And for the board's knowledge, the bridge design is an exact replica of the 12-foot wide bridge that was 400 yards away. So it's a continuity of the design of the infrastructure and the trail. And what I failed to add in the previous discussion was that this bulletin board is the exact same construction as the two we already have in town. The waterfront at Glen Lake and also Uncanunic Lake bulletin board. It's based on a design prepared by the Fish and Game folks at the state.
Any questions? Another great project.
Yeah.
Which greatly benefits our community. So, Henry, certainly want to thank you. Do I have a motion to approve this project?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Selectman Fournier. Any questions, Selectman Fournier? You good? All right.
Fighting his tongue.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
5-0. Once again, both of you, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Good luck.
All right.
Selectman Fournier said he can help you out anytime.
All right.
He's very good with tools.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the
We already got that badge.
Right, that's right. I think you got that badge at a meeting, at a budget committee. Were you at that budget committee meeting when it was really heated? Were you at that one?
What?
No, there was a really heated one, and, I think some,
Yeah, his dad was a little
I
bit.
think so, maybe I'm off, but, okay. We're gonna go
See you later,
back.
guys.
Take care. We're gonna go back to, the goals and plans for, this year. Budget oversight was number 6, and whether it's a goal or if it's something that we need to keep track of, but if you remember last year, I think we were a little late in the game on that one. I put the board needs to review 2010 budget expenditures, unanticipated expenses and or revenues, et cetera, on a monthly basis. Special attention to overtime staffing, potential cost savings, possible grant opportunities, et cetera. And again, I put some of these dates down, we can change anything. Department heads should submit report to the Board of Selectmen in May, July, September, October, November, December, and I did those monthly at the end of the year, but certainly we need to get a status update in May and July with regard to any budget deviations in excess of $10,000 or a prescribed amount set by the board. I was thinking $10,000. If there's another number, then let me know, but my thought process was that if we are overexpended, let's say on an overtime line, I'd like to know that now. Why are we? What are we doing to make sure that we come in either at or under budget? What actions may we need to take in order to achieve that? What are some of the things that maybe were beyond our control, i.e. we had some natural disasters, et cetera, but we kinda need to know now, early on in the year, not in October, when we really can't do much to change things, so, again, these are my thoughts. If the board
Well-
wants to go in a different direction, I'm not insulted at all.
I'll go after Phil.
Well, one thing, I'm not saying it in a different direction, but one thing, that we might consider too is that have each selectman work closely with their department head on these, because you deal with the department head more than a monthly meeting or a weekly meeting.
I'm good with that. I just wanna make sure that this board collectively, so if you're gonna report, if we're all gonna individually report back, so if I'm working with, say, Sue, and I'm gonna meet with Sue, and I'm gonna report back in our May meeting, okay, here's where we're at for admin. Here's where we're under, here's where we're over, here are some of the steps that we're gonna take to get us back in line, or here's some of the things that were out of our control. I'm good with all that, so whether it's, but ultimately it has to come back to this board for discussion and potential action, that's all. Steve?
I agree with the thought process, I'm not sure how we get there in this manner. If we're talking excess and deviations of 10%, or even we put a dollar figure, usually that seems to have a cumulative effect, and we see it at the end in that last quarter. So how you know.
No, here's where I'm at, I should probably clarify that. We kinda know that, let's just say that we're in the month of May, we're 5 months into it, we should be, what is our normal expenditures for being 5 months into a budget? And let's just say that, we have a $120,000 budget for a particular line, let's say that's an overtime line. And in all things being in a perfect world, we would spend $10,000 a month. So in May, we would expect to see a line expended by $50,000, okay? If it was at $90,000, I'd wanna know why, and what steps are we gonna take so that we're not going to be in a position where we're gonna be $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 over budget come December. And if we are gonna be in that position, what steps can we take between now and then to curb that? And sometimes that means that we have to make some difficult decisions. Maybe we're taking money from other lines within that particular department. Maybe it means that something is gonna go unstaffed. Maybe it means we're not gonna provide a level of service that we're ordinarily doing to make sure that we're within our budget. But I don't think we can, just simply wait until September to start to make that, cause then we have no time to make it up. Right now, we're in a position where we're only 3 months have gone by. So we have 9 months to really manage this thing pretty good.
I guess where I was coming from on my suggestion, when I say work with your department head a little more close, and also learning more about the particular budget. For example, exactly what you're talking about right now, you could take a look at, let's say, for example, Public Works. Public Works' total budget might look like it's fine. You may look at it and say, well, gee, if you went in on a percentage, I mean, a lot of times you'll take a budget and you'll say a budget is, let's say a budget for $120,000 divided by 12 months at $10,000 a month. So if you're in the 5th month, you should be, $50,000 expenses by a percentage. That's one way of looking at a budget, but if you understand the department, each department is gonna be different, because, for example, Public Works won't get a lot of bills in until you start getting to October, November. Sometimes you even come December, some of the bills haven't even been in, and all of a sudden it's bing, bing, bing. Big chunks come in. Police, for example, all of a sudden you may have, your uniforms or vests or specific, types of expenditures. So I made that suggestion so that each one of us would become a little bit more familiar with.
Right, it's seasonal, that's the thing we have to keep in mind, is that some of these departments have, it's somewhat seasonal, where they may expend a lot of their budget in the fall.
Plowing all the time.
Right, exactly, so
Right.
we have to recognize that, but that's kind of knowing your department and talking to your department, and I think the key here is that we need to let the department heads know now, that we need to look aggressively at this budget, every single month, where we're at, where do we think we're gonna fall, because we've gotta be within budget, period, the end.
I
And or
think-
save money as best we can.
I think if we look at those year-to-date or year-to-month averages from past years, we can use those as comparisons. Because things change here and there, but for the most part, as you said, most of those big bills that come in at the end of the year for DPW come in every year. So you can kind of follow the pattern of spending by looking at past budget
Right.
cycles.
So that was that for that one, and if anybody has any other suggestions, is there a dollar amount that we wanna see before I
Well,
take
I
your?
wasn't sure before we go to that, but what we're talking about is key metrics, and I think there are gonna be consistent key metrics for every one of those groups. And, you know, and regarding that, where you have your salaries, et cetera, I mean, you really wanna, I'm thinking we should break down some of those key metrics to very, what's the best way, but let's just say if we were to take salaries, et cetera, I'm just looking for the salary line itself, I'm not looking for all the associated costs. In other words, it should be brought into that same number. Okay, so in other words, to make it simpler, and you would have those same pieces where it would be the salaries, condense it all into one line. Overtime, you can condense it to one line, maybe, you know, fuels, et cetera, so there are certain ones you'll have key metrics, and I think this way it becomes consistent, because also you're gonna be talking further down the road, how this sets into with, shall we say, not so much, not only the management of it, but also how, when you're talking within those review cycles, how they're hitting those marks
Right.
also.
The other thing that I, thought might be beneficial to us, as we talked earlier in item number 1 with our collective bargaining, workshop, when we get together with other department heads, I think this is one that we probably need to highlight too, so it would be a workshop on what are some of those issues with collective bargaining, but also, let's set some clear expectations with regard to budgets to give the department heads guidance with all of them in the room, and then individually through our department liaisons. Budget prep for 2011, we've already done this. Sue and I met with Dan Cloutier, chairman of the budget committee, prior to our meeting tonight, to establish some ground rules for collaborative meetings. One of the ideas that we talked about was, as you know, when we go through the budget season, we typically start sometime in late September. We have joint meetings with the budget committee and the board of selectmen over 4 or 5 Mondays to go through all the different departments. And one of the ideas was to have one day, a Saturday, probably from 9 to 3 with lunch in between, where we have a lot of times for the department heads to do their presentation. Hopefully we'll have attendance by the majority of folks on the budget committee. It's one day. It does not bog us down in terms of doing our responsibilities in terms of our weekly meetings. That's one. Secondly, with 4 collective bargaining unit discussions, which will probably be getting hot and heavy in September and October, that would be my anticipation. The more time we can free up, I think the better off we're gonna be. So Dan seemed to like the idea. We were looking at a date of October 23rd.
This would include as much as possible, the full budget committee?
Oh, the full budget committee and the board of selectmen. And it would be, like I said, it would be, it'll be the better part of a day with lunch included. And, again, we'd allot certain times for different departments and for them to go through their budget, and everybody gets the same presentation, so. If you'd like to mark your calendars, that's kind of how we think, be best served. That'll buy us a little bit more time too, because, that'll buy our department heads a little bit more time, because, obviously, and it'll buy us a little time. Now, on the flip side, it will give us 2 meetings for us to, deliberate on our budget, just so you know. It'll be the Monday after that meeting, so will be on a Saturday, so it'll be that Monday will be the first deliberation for the board, and then the following Monday would be when we'd have to finalize. So we've got 2 meetings in which our board is going to deliberate, on that budget.
Unless you wanna have a
Unless-
special meeting in between those two.
Right, unless we wanna have another meeting in between.
In speaking with Dan, is there any changes to the process this year? Do you still think the budget will be coming down the way we normally go through?
A couple of
or-
different things that let me just, as I took some notes.
Unless you're going to that later, I don't wanna sidetrack this
No,
piece. and-
it makes sense, it's here. We talked about a few different things. For one of the issues was with collective bargaining, and that there are timeframes in which these agreements have to be, I guess, ratified or approved by both parties. I believe that's the second Tuesday in January, but the budget committee is obviously entitled to a review of that. So we're gonna work with Dan to try to come up with a date which we can discuss with the bargaining units to do that. We also talked to Dan about opportunities for the board to have a special article, to place a special warrant article on the warrant if we know that something may get cut from the budget. Last year, we didn't have an opportunity because the deadline had passed. That opportunity, that situation may avail itself in future years as well, but we as a board have to be aware that if there is like a last minute reduction to say cut, like let's say the road program, for an example, and the board wanted to put that money or that cut on as a special warrant article, if you do not know that, you don't have that ability to put it on there for the voters to decide if we wanted to go that route. So we talked a little bit about that. We talked about tours and meetings with the departments, and May 18th, the budget committee will get a tour of the police department, and we asked the budget committee if they wanted to have any other tours of any other facilities. We do have some new members, whether that be police, fire, DPW, Parks and Rec, library, town hall. Dan will reach out to the board members and the budget committee members, see if they want that. And we also talked about how we're gonna get back into the practice of, if there are questions that the selectmen's rep doesn't know the answer to, I will, since it's me this year, I will email those to Sue. Sue will get the answers from the different department heads and then respond back to Dan, so we kind of have a running tally of the questions and the answers, so that it's memorialized, so that when all the board members, what we saw sometimes is that somebody did make a meeting, a budget meeting, and then the same question got answered, and sometimes the response was, well, what I remember was what someone told me. So now it'll be, this is the question, this is the answer. Trying to make it a little bit easier for everybody. And the other thing that I clarified with Dan, for the record, is that there was some questions from budget committee members with regard to participation with collective bargaining unit negotiations, and that is not permissible. The Board of Selectmen is the governing body, or if it was a school board, if it was a school contract, they would be entering negotiations with the bargaining unit. Their attorneys might represent both sides, but unfortunately, the budget committee members are not privy to being a part of those negotiation sessions. That does not preclude them from sharing what their thoughts are, but that doesn't mean that there's a back and forth dialogue, basically. So, just wanted to make that, Dan understood that, but I wanted just to reiterate that.
Were there any discussions regarding last year's process where they went by the MS7 lines and not disclose, well, not disclose it, but not pointing out?
We did talk about that. Dan stated that every year the budget committee kind of adopts their rules of procedure, just like the Board of Selectmen. But they're very much fluid in the sense that they can agree to terms and what they're gonna do early on in the process, and then they could change, just like this board could technically do the same. So, we understand, and I think that also Dan understands that when we go through a process of going line by line, and then at the end we do a blanket cut or a blanket reduction, it kind of undermines that whole process. I think we need to just have some more discussion with the membership, and I'll do that when I get together with them, saying, What are some of the things that you're looking at? Are you looking at a level tax rate? Are you looking at a level budget? What are you looking at? What is your goal? Understanding that they're in a tough position because they're going to be talking about these things in June, because they don't meet in July and August. Maybe they're in September, but as we saw last year, I think whether we like it or not, what decisions that were made in, say, September, the economy kind of changed and went a little further south as the months proceeded. Now, will things, remain the same? Will they improve? Will they get worse? But last year, it was pretty fluid, and I think what some of them went into in September changed a lot at the end. So maybe it's, I'm not speaking one way or the other. I think it would be very nice to have consistency. If we're gonna stick with MS7 lines, then let's stick with that from the get-go. If we're gonna do a line-by-line review, then let's cut line by line. But I think I'll have those discussions with them when I get together with them as to what we would like to see. They're their own independently elected board, so they make the rules as they deem fit. Yep.
The Saturday, the 23rd of October, department head presentation to the both boards.
Yeah.
Do you anticipate there'd be enough time for the dialogue from these both boards to the department heads and back and forth?
No. What I expect.
Would it work then?
What I expect is that just like it happens now, where there is a presentation, there's a little bit of Q&A, but if you recall from your participation on the budget committee, as many times, whether it be with the Board of Selectmen or with the budget committee, they come back for follow-up. So I would envision that we would, give a department head a certain time slot in which to make their presentation, and then avail them, to another opportunity with the budget committee to answer follow-up type questions. But this is, I think what we get is we get an overview and we get some Q&A. There's no doubt about it. And I don't.
So there could be some short Q&A.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Concerns could be expressed.
Right.
And then resolved at a later date.
Right.
Going into that date in October, you're probably also assuming that the board members who have liaison with the departments are in sync with that department head.
Correct.
As to what they're gonna.
I think our board is gonna have to go and obviously sit down and say, okay, what is our goal in terms of our budget? There's a couple of unique things which we talked to Dan about. As you know, we have 4 collective bargaining units right now. The latest one was certified, and that's police, dispatch, and records. So we knew we had police, the patrol officers and sergeants, fire department, and the DPW Teamsters. Now we have police, dispatch, and records. What will happen is that they will see an essentially flat budget in a lot of the salary lines, simply because we have these contracts that are coming up. The only exception to that would be whatever this board talks about with its non-union employees. So you're gonna see, in terms of labor and benefits and everything, it'll pretty much essentially be somewhat flat. The increases are going to be in the individual collective bargaining agreements that are brought forth. Does that, everybody kind of understand where we're at there? Because as it stands now, with an expired contract, or if something got voted down, they stay frozen at the step, and they do not get a cost of living, and then the insurance is also frozen, with the amount that's paid. Okay, so, and then once it is approved by the voters, then those increased costs then are then added to the budget on the back end. Everybody kinda got that? We're good? We understand I just wanna make sure that everybody understands the process. So, and since the board has, over the last 3 years, had a lot of the other numbers as default, for the most part, with some little deviations in terms of our supply lines, equipment, you name it, I would anticipate that our budget itself will be somewhat flat. Not entirely flat, but it'll be pretty flat. What the increases that we will see are gonna be what's ever negotiated in terms of salary and other types of benefits or compensation. All right. Question?
I would like to have this board be presented, a tutorial, could be a half hour long, on the, how the default budget is put together. And that would be part of, us receiving information on that default budget. And it could be some point, perhaps after that.
Okay, what time?
That would be part of, not only education of us, but education of the public as to how that process works and what components go into a default budget.
Okay. I'm gonna add that.
I think that was done a handful of years back. Was it the what was her name?
LGC.
Yeah.
What was it? Well, I forget her name though.
It's worth a half hour tutorial.
Yeah.
Christine.
The other thing that we talked about was perhaps a meeting with LGC Health Trust to talk to this board about benefits, which I think might be helpful to have before we go into our bargaining unit negotiations.
Right, we still need to look at the ramifications of the recent.
Evergreen language.
No, the healthcare bill.
Healthcare bill,
Healthcare
right.
bill.
There's changes coming down that.
So.
LGC is, stay in tune with their website because they are doing, updates as they become known. Someone's studying that bill, and as it affects us, they're doing little presentations on their website.
So, we talk a lot about, I'm just gonna add one thing, we talk a lot about, our calendars, and since we're gonna start our discussions on May 31st and on July 1st, I think we should contemplate a June or July discussion with LGC Health Trust, and just so we're all got a good understanding of what health insurance costs are gonna look like, dental, all those other things, so we need to hopefully set
They
something
won't
like.
know then.
I know they're not gonna know then, I guess what I'm trying to say is that I think we need an education of the board in terms of what plans are offered, what are the
Okay.
differences between, but we got that, Sue, me and you.
Yep.
But I think the board would benefit from that, for consistency, stakes, and I think probably June or July would be good timing to, as we try to get that off the ground.
And if each of you could tell me when you're planning your summer vacation, so we don't schedule a workshop or a presentation when you're gonna be away, that would be helpful too. Just email me and let me know that.
Okay. The, perambulation, which I didn't even,
Phil,
I'm
that's-
sorry,
Stay on budget.
Phil, I had, I forgot.
Well, just a follow-up to Nick's comment. I had been talking to the chairman of the Board of Selectmen in Bedford, and that healthcare also changes, it puts a burden on the individual states with the Medicare, because it changes everything to Medicare and the Medicaid. So if the states are going to have to, more of a burden is put on the state, you know where the state's gonna
Yeah.
compensate, it's gonna come either try and affect their revenue sharing or,
Right, and that's why, I put in number 6, why we need to start paying attention to our 2010 budget now, because even though we were pleasantly surprised, because we got, I don't know what it was, $100,000 in increased revenue due to the floods of 2006, that was unanticipated revenue. That could get eaten up so quickly in terms of, if more costs get downshifted, whether it be Medicare, Medicaid, all those things, changes in our rooms and meals distribution, you name it. So I think it's the difficulty for us at the municipal level is that the target is always changing, and we never know where our revenues are coming from, and that's the challenge. David, you had something to add?
Perhaps a question for Sue. When does this town have to implement the new rules as to the components of a fund balance? Is it beginning of next January?
We already have a fund balance policy, as Selectmen adopted.
But is it compatible to the new law?
I'd have to check, I think it is. I think this article is later in coming, I think we already did it.
Thank you.
Bill, you have anything else?
No.
Anybody else? It's perambulation, okay, and that is required by state statute, and I guess this is
every 7 years.
every 7 years, and help me, this is just, with delineate the boundary lines between,
the
Define
towns.
there's
Between the
Granite
towns.
Mound.
Make sure the markers are still there. There's
Okay.
one marker between, Hooksett, Dunbarton, Goffstown, and if you sit on it, you'll be in 3 towns at the same time.
and.
It's not the
Selectman
corner of
Pierce-
your house, is it?
And Selectman Pierce will be sitting
No,
on the markers.
it's nearby.
So we're,
I know.
David, thank you so much for volunteering to do that. I know that, that's gonna be quite a bit of work, and we know you like walking through the woods, so it should be.
I'm seeking to
Yeah.
do that, with Steve from the town hall.
Scott? Scott from the town hall?
I'm sorry, Scott,
Mhm.
assessor.
He had expressed an interest in doing
Okay.
it.
And then if we needed backup to find something that hasn't been, discoverable with our eyeballs, then we can use a GPS and have occasional help from DPW with GPS unit.
Mhm. Megan's been out to all of them, I believe. She's found most.
And just for the board's knowledge, I think there was, last time Megan was involved, there were 27 monuments that were found and documented. And procedurally, I guess it would be best if, we have to notify 4 towns that we would like to walk the town line or discover these monuments with 4 towns this year. So if this town is going to invite another town to go view some monuments, it behooves this town to know where they all are.
Okay,
And how to easily get there, and that's part of the process.
okay, thank you.
You're authorizing Selectman Pierce to go forward?
Yeah, let's
with
make a
this?
motion to authorize Selectman Pierce to proceed with the perambulation.
So moved.
Seconded by myself. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's 5-0.
Do you wanna do this before the black flies get
Yeah.
out again, the foliage?
And last but not least, we have the Barnard land purchase, which was approved by the voters this past March. And we will need to finalize that purchase coming in July as the funds become available. And one of the items which I think we should give some consideration towards is the develop a short, medium, and long-term plan for the site, which will assist DPW. If the site is to be used for, in the medium or long-term for recreational or park use, then consider engaging the Parks and Rec Commission in a 5 to 10 year plan for the site. And I say that because if a plan is developed for municipal use, i.e. recreational fields, a park, etc., Carl and the DPW staff would need to know that as we're excavating some of these materials, perhaps we might be saving topsoils and storing them to top dress a field. If we're looking to obviously reclaim some of the Perret sand pit, that would need to be known. What areas are they going to excavate first? Those types of things. So I thought that might be a something that we could discuss, and if we are going in the route of medium to long-term usage at the end when it is excavated as a recreational or park use, to get Parks and Rec Commission involved in a 5 or 10 year plan so that they can start to embark on that and get them going on that. Perhaps they might bring in other entities that might share in some of the cost of, if there are any costs associated. There was some discussion at one point if that was gonna be used for fields about having to move power lines, maybe they could work with somebody to move lines, et cetera, but anyway, I think that would be something that we should discuss. And that was all I had, and
Just one point, to make clarification, what you're talking about is a long-term,
long-term.
so I.
But if you don't know,
Misunderstands.
right, if you don't know what the long-term is, then you can't deal with the short-term, because you may screw up your long-term plans if you don't.
No,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
agree, but I just wanted to make sure, just for clarification, because I don't want people to, anybody to get the wrong impression that we're developing
A park tomorrow, no.
for next year or
Right,
next 2
yeah,
or 3
right.
years. So,
Was there anything else that, I mean, this is pretty ambitious, don't get me wrong, I mean, and some of the things that we have,
Well, let's talk about time, that's a good point.
time, in terms of you wanna mark the calendar as to what we're
Well-
gonna do, or?
He wants to fill up all those blank spaces.
I'd like to make a motion to allow Selectman Fournier.
No, couple things with this. When we look at all the time that we spend during the weeks for different committees, et cetera, maybe we should start changing some of that time, how we meet. In other words, I know that I'll meet 4 times, let's say on an average month, I will meet four Mondays here, then I'll go up to other different committees. Maybe we go with such and such as the condensed minutes and use those instead of go to the meetings, but we plan an extra meeting that maybe as we as a group get together and we just deal with the goals here and not the other things that we normally see on a Monday. Just a thought, I mean.
Yeah, it's funny, I mean, when I met with the library trustees at the last meeting, I told them flat out that we have 4 bargaining units that we're gonna be doing negotiations with. We have a lot on our plate, and that I might not attend every single one of your trustee meetings, but I will keep in touch with Diane and the chair, and I'll read the minutes, and I'll keep my, the communication lines open, but I may not be able to attend every single meeting, and I suspect that, we're gonna be challenged, and, as if each of us is gonna have to tackle, let's say, one of these contract negotiations. Sue and I did the fire department one a couple of years ago, and that was very time consuming. I mean, to the point of sometimes we met twice a week. So I do envision that we may not be able to go to some of these meetings that we ordinarily did, and I think just to give a heads up to those committees to let them know, yeah, we still care about you, but our time is we don't, having 4 in 1 year is incredibly challenging.
What I agree with that, but what I'm talking about, that we might start looking at the point of scheduling another meeting that we meet as a board, if we decide to go down this road here, because I'm sure everyone's looking at this draft now, there might be changes, there might be deletions, et cetera, I'm not sure, but it's gonna be a big year, and like anything else, I think you need to prioritize your attention. Maybe we take an extra meeting that we just deal with these issues, and so, on a monthly basis.
It'd be a non-public meeting, that's what you're referring to.
I wasn't referring to it being as non-public or not, I'm just referring that we need to get together, I think, just sometimes that we're not dealing with signs or other things that you just, hey, let's just get down to these topics here. And if we're prioritizing them, and I imagine once again, we have to as a group decide what we're gonna prioritize and how it is, but it's much bigger than what we were looking at last year.
I thought you were still on the collective bargaining issues.
No,
Does everybody understand
Not the
where
whole
select?
scope.
no, I understand what you're saying there, maybe one of those nights it is that, but.
Does everybody understand where Selectman Fournier is coming from? Any questions? Is there an agreement there that we're probably gonna be stretched pretty thin?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right, like I said, I just think it's the courteous thing to do is to give these commissions and committees a heads up that we may not be attending every meeting.
And also be holding extra meetings.
Right, okay. All right, the other thing I wanted to go back was talking about, land purchases, who has conservation?
I do.
All right, if we could have a conversation with them, because I know open space is a subcommittee, if there are any plans in the works for a land purchase, easements, et cetera, if we can have that, they could clue you in on that as early as possible. I think, we all know that sometimes deals come in at the last minute. But I think in fairness to us, we go through a budget process, and we're trying to establish our target for a budget. And then all of a sudden, at the 11th hour, something comes up which kind of puts a huge monkey wrench. And I understand that happens sometimes, but if the commissions and the committees and that's the only one who may, in fact, probably purchase land, we can at least let them know, if you have any inclination of this, can you please let us know, and we can at least keep that in our mindset when we formulate our 2011 budget. So I would think by September, Sue, if they have any ideas about easements or land purchases, they need to let us know. And obviously, we can discuss it in non-public, but we gotta have some sort of knowledge.
Point, well, if they're planning a land purchase that's over 25,000, they
Should be in
should plan
CIP,
CIP
right.
in May.
Right. And I think consequently, the same thing is, we should know from our department heads if there's any major purchases, that should be in our CIP, as well. So, that was that. I think the next thing to do would be to start to, put the dates as to when we're gonna do some of these things, and I'll work with you, Steve, so we can mark up the calendar and pick some
He's being
deadlines in place.
facetious, huh?
No, I'm not being facetious.
But you still wanna have a workshop on goals?
Yes,
Okay.
I wanna have, not so much
Can we
the
schedule
goals,
that?
not so much the goals per se, I think we've done that. I think this document kinda took care of some of that. I think what we need to do is we need to sit down with our department heads for two things. One is the collective bargaining unit negotiations,
Okay, that would be a non-meeting.
non-meeting. And then the other would be, we talked about, budget and really fine tuning what our expectations are for the budget. And that would be it. So I don't know how we, maybe they're two different things we do separately.
Sometimes, and I follow what Sue is saying, sometimes the goals are so broad that if we don't really sit down and look at milestones and dates, and sometimes the workshop, we're able to do that. And actually say, okay, this is the overall goal, which you have here, but then these are the individual pieces that we need, the milestones, and these are the
Okay,
dates that we
so
want to hit.
is it fair to say though that,
along
that
that
the,
route.
is it fair to say that the board is kind of okay with some of these, with most of these things, but we just need to put a little bit more meat on the bones?
Meat on the bone, yeah.
And put some more deadlines and timeframes in, and then we'll schedule that. Now, what?
Would you email that to me,
Oh,
Scott?
sure, yeah.
Good.
Because then we can kinda use this and then put in some dates and what, we can do this at the end of the meeting. We won't take our time now, but we'll schedule something at the end of the meeting,
The
to have that
only
workshop.
request I had was, not on a Monday or Tuesday morning.
Okay,
I know we wanted to meet in the early morning.
okay.
but-
Oh, so we can do Sunday morning?
No, it was I think that what I was asked was, what would be a good weekday morning?
Right.
Monday and Tuesday were no.
Okay, so, we might as well skip right to Carl since he's here. The DPW top
Top
10.
10.
Top 10. You don't look top 10 though tonight though, Carl. You sick or something?
No,
You sure? You look a little tired.
long day,
What?
long day.
Good day, or?
Yeah, it's a good day, just long.
All right, so this is kind of a continuation of our discussion last week in which we reviewed the plans for the road plan. And we also, we have an approval of paving bid specs. And one of the things that is new to our packet from last week was some of the breakdowns for the Mass Road roundabout.
And what's going around, Scott, is that just came in 5:30 today from the engineer.
This one
It's
here.
the latest, greatest engineer estimate, and it brings even more detail over what you had in your packet.
Okay, you have a copy of it?
Yeah.
Would you like to just kinda give us the skinny on this?
Yeah, let me just quickly let me first just address the confusion, I think, that we came across last week. What you were looking at last week, there were two different estimates, and when I met with Selectmen Pierce, what became apparent to me is, I think you were all viewing just the additional items in the latest estimate as add-ons. And what it was that first estimate, which was done for the budget last year, was, yes, if you look back at, some of you have seen this, some of you haven't, but this is the '06, the conceptual study that was done. That exact same table that you hold in your hand is in this '06 study. And what we asked McFarland Johnson to do for us when we started last year's budget is just take the conceptual plan, which is all we had at the time, and update the budget they'd provided us in '06 for our upcoming year, okay? So it's very much, it was a conceptual budget based on that little stick drawing, I'll call it, the very simplistic conceptual drawing of the roundabout. That second estimate that you had is, okay, now we're at like 85% or 90% design. They can actually see, okay, this structure's gotta be abandoned, this one's gotta be added, so there's just a lot more detail. Not necessarily add-ons, just we're now in design and we have refined numbers. And then what I'd also done, which led to confusion, was we had added from the roundabout up to the high school, the section of Wallace Road and the intersection of Worthley and Wallace that were never part of McFarland Johnson's estimates. And, you know, when I talked to Selectman Pierce, there was some confusion as to, is this in the roundabout number or not in the roundabout number? So I just wanna clear it up. We had added a separate line specifically for that Wallace Road and Worthley Hill add-on in the road plan. And what this does, these 3 pages, put all 3 of those into separate, into similar format, but separate pages. So you can now see the first page is strictly the roundabout. It is all the detail pertaining to just the roundabout piece. At the bottom of the page, you see an alternate 1 add-on. That was the decision-making point that I was talking to you about last week. Do we want to do concrete and brick sidewalks, or do you want to just have asphalt sidewalks? I asked them to break that out so you could clearly see this is how much additional we're talking about in the roundabout if we want to make it a gateway treatment and have concrete and brick. The second page takes just Wallace Road from the roundabout up to the high school, and it's the same thing. There are a couple of decisions we make. If we decided to do concrete sidewalk, I remember one of the criticisms we had with Grassmere when we were done was there was somewhat of a mishmash look. We had some places it was granite curb, some places it was asphalt berm, some places it was concrete sidewalk, some places we just put asphalt sidewalk. I just wanted to make everybody aware up front, let's decide how we want to do it. You know, we made our best guess back then on our own with let's save money where we can, but I wanted to pull that out and let's talk about it. If we want concrete and granite all the way up to the high school, alternate 1 and alternate 2 at the bottom of this page, that's what those clearly delineate. And then the third page is the realignment of Worthley Hill Road, and it's the same thing. We have alternate 1 and alternate 2. So if you wanna do granite and concrete everywhere, so it's all consistent, the add-ons are there. Now, the estimates that were in the road plan spreadsheet, the 500 and the
190.
the 160, match pretty much these numbers. Now, you'll see the good news, the estimate on the roundabout is actually a little lower than it was. The reason for that is, I wasn't aware of it, nor was McFarland Johnson, so I really dug into it. A lot of the work that we're now proposing to do on Wallace, they had built in, like approach work down Wallace, was built into the roundabout number, so now they've pulled that out and put it over on the Wallace Road. So the roundabout number actually went down a little because some of that work shifted over to the Wallace Road estimate. So I hope I didn't further confuse the issue. I tried to give you as much detail as we could and clearly show you what the decisions that we have in front of us. But the numbers are certainly supported within that 2010 draft road plan that you saw last week.
All right, any questions?
I would like to thank Carl for breaking it into the 3 components, the roundabout, extending Wallace Road, and the work on the Worthley Hill intersection. And with the options.
Yeah, and one other thing I just want to mention is if you look at this option, and again, this speaks to the difference between the conceptual estimate and the final construction estimate. Over the last months of winter, February-ish, when McFarland Johnson started digging into the design and started putting meat on the bones, we started reviewing that design as it came together. And we started, as you know, Center Street, we designed in-house, we built in-house. All right, that was not a McFarland Johnson design, it was not anyone design, it was our own design. We went up and reviewed some of the roundabouts that have been built over the last couple of years that were built to McFarland Johnson spec. There were certain things we did in Grassmere that they had not done. Things like setting the granite in concrete. You know, typically, like if we're just doing a sidewalk up Main Street, you would set that in granite, you'd back it up, compact it, and you'd pave it, and everything's good. When we did the roundabout, we really felt like, you know, there's gonna be a lot of plows hitting that curb and a lot of potential damage just because it's such a tight area and it curves. So we actually set all that granite in cement. That was something that wasn't part of McFarland Johnson spec. Same with, if you look at all of our splitter islands, we have these big, we call them bullnose curbs. It's not just a granite, 2 pieces of curbing that come to a point. It's a very dense, large piece of granite. And we have them on all the corners of those islands for the same reason. That also is not part of their typical design. But if you go up to, for instance, the roundabout in Concord and White Park that was built last year, and look at one winter's worth of damage to that roundabout, it's money that we feel, we don't show it as an add-on, because we really feel that's something we
Right,
want to
that was
do.
a question that I had, was, a lot of times we have to make decisions about using granite curb versus using, other materials. And it seems to me that in areas where we put, for lack of a better term, I guess it's asphalt curbing, that just gets ripped up every time, and you're re-putting it down, and then you have to go and clean it up, and it just seems like from a maintenance perspective, to me, I know you pay a lot more for the granite, but it lasts forever, whereas we're close to it, but the other one seems to get eaten up all the time.
I think the other issue is a safety issue too with the sidewalks and the children, because that is a school area, and
Right.
it'd be
The granite
hard,
would
the
be
vertical
There's-
granite's much harder to.
Right.
Yeah, and
clean it up on.
we do two types of asphalt berm, and they cost essentially the same thing. One is a Cape Cod berm, which we do like on Mountain Road, just to direct water to catch basins. That is mountable, it's very flat, it's almost flush with the
Yeah.
road. But if you look at the asphalt we did along Elm Street to match what was there, that was an actual vertical curb machine built out of asphalt. So it's considered a non-mountable curb, but it's made with asphalt. And, if you're in straight stretches, asphalt is fairly durable, but it's when you get into corners and areas where the plows are gonna hit it straight on, that's where it gets a little
Okay. Yes, David.
less durable.
So Carl, you explained to us that in former designs offered by McFarland on roundabouts, compared to Grassmere, you over built, or you reinforced
Right.
certain components of the Grassmere roundabout compared to the standard design by McFarland.
Right.
So, would we see this reinforced concept in these plans?
This estimate is the reinforced, this is the same quality
I
as
just want to
Grassmere.
make that clear.
The other big one, by the way, is the cobblestone. I don't wanna that costs money, but we think that also is the whole character of the roundabout is in that cobblestone. And again, if you look at concrete aprons that a lot of other communities do to save a couple bucks, a winter or two of plowing, they all start to break up and you really start to see a problem, so.
Yeah, question.
Yes.
Also, doesn't that concrete, isn't it affected by salt?
Yeah, you can air and train it, and you can treat it, but it is. It's susceptible to salt. I say that knowing that we're gonna talk about concrete sidewalks in the next breath, and that's where all the snowbanks get pushed in the salt too. So if you get the right concrete mix, it's not as bad as like, if you walk into a Home Depot parking lot where they use concrete curb, because Home Depot has these cookie cutter designs that they use all over the country, that curb is not spec'd for salt, so you'll see it melting away.
Right, but, we had the issue with the Main Street Bridge.
Right.
With salt,
Yep,
and those that are concrete,
yep,
that's what you were end up having.
yep, it clearly has an effect.
Questions? Yes.
Just a comment, just if you add up all of the options for all of the different projects, it's 594,000, and there's 660
Correct, that's what I
in
had.
this,
Yeah.
so it's less than the projection of the road.
And of those, there would be, as we talked about earlier this evening, with that one project, Viking Orchards, I believe it was a 25%
Right.
of the share, cost share for the Wortherly Wallace
Right.
intersection, and then I believe it was a 5%. 2%? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
A 2% cost share on the roundabout.
And just to remind the board, these are just engineering estimates.
Right.
So until we actually hand these to a contractor and get real numbers back, this could change again. This is just our best guess right now estimate from the engineer.
All right, we had a couple of things that we had to wait on, and that was, as we know, we put out to bid our green drainage. Delore is the contractor for that, and Carl had asked us last week as to if we approach Delore with a change order, there could be there's two things that will occur. One of which is, because they're already mobilized here, we could anticipate, I guess, hitting the ground a lot quicker in terms of starting this project, and knowing that we have a pretty tight window for construction when school is out to try to get the lion's share of this project underway and constructed. That's an issue for us. Secondly, because Delore already has equipment on site, the mobilization and some of the other factors may yield more, competitive pricing. Flip side is that, is everything all right back there? You good? Okay. The flip side of it is, there are many times when we put these things out to, so there's two sides of this coin. I mean, we have, in essence, we have already put a segment of this out to bid, and this company won that bid. So they were competitive already when we did it. Who's to say that they would be competitive again for another phase of something, but certainly we need answers, we need to make decisions, I should say. Carl needs answers on how to proceed so that we can, get this thing tackled, so that we do not have a traffic albatross around our neck come September, October, when school is back in session. David, you had a question or comment?
I want to start that discussion with the timeline for the green drainage and then this roundabout construction. I believe the goal is all of it, or like 80% of it during non-school break,
Yeah, as far,
school, summer vacation.
as far as the intersection, absolutely, it'd be nice to get it all. As far as the green drainage, they have some critical facilities, such as the culvert crossing South Mast, that it'll be very much in their best interest to do that when school is out and they don't have as much traffic. So even with the green drainage, there are certain aspects of it that they're also gonna have to wait until that break. Some of it, like the work down East Union Street and, working along the edges of South Mass, they could probably start now, but some of it they're gonna have to wait.
If we wanted this project that we're discussing tonight to commence in 60 days from now, end of May, early June, would we not be able to achieve that if this was a separate bid?
We could still achieve it. We would have to get it out to bid now and have a tight turnaround. It's doable. Obviously, we have all those same concerns I brought to you before, having two work zones that essentially overlap, both shooting for that window between when school is out and both managing traffic. I mean, there's a lot of issues there, but.
Flaggers sending cars the opposite direction for a bottleneck.
Yeah. And it's not insurmountable, but it certainly adds some layers of complexity to and sets up a potential finger pointing.
Yes, Matt?
I'm in favor of going out to bid, and I think for the very reasons that Delore could do it cheaper, places the ball in their court. I mean, they're already mobilized, they're gonna take all of those things into account when they put in their bid. But I just think it's the way to do it. I don't like the change order.
That would be the proof if they were to come back and say, we're taking advantage of already being there. And it would make it, other firms bidding on this project they would acknowledge that, and they would really have to fine tune what their estimates would be to be competitive.
Anyone else?
See, I don't look at it that way. I look at it, if I was Delore, I have the advantage on here. I know what it's gonna cost those guys to get here. I know what it's gonna cost me, and I could split that number right there and come in with, get more money. Because I know they can't get here for what I can get here for.
So you're saying taking unit values to do the unit pricing that's already in the contract and extending that as an amendment would be a good decision.
So none of the unit pricing would change?
Some of it may go down. Keep in mind that the work that they're doing on or on the drainage is ARA related. This would all be non-eligible, non-ARA project. So there's some, for instance, if they had a price here for curbing, granite curbing, and they had to carry ARA payroll numbers for curbing guys, but then for this, they don't. The price of curb could come down a couple bucks, that's
I don't follow that.
in ARA, one of the requirements was that you use certain Davis-Bacon wage rates.
Right.
Normally, a Massachusetts contractor, it's not an issue, because Massachusetts contractors pay union rates, so they don't have an issue. But when a Massachusetts company comes all the way up to New Hampshire, they're not gonna bring a curbing guy up with them. They're gonna hire somebody like J&B Curbing in Dunbar. J&B doesn't make union wages. They don't make those same Massachusetts rates. Now, under the ARA portion of the work, Delory's gonna have to pay J&B those Davis-Bacon wages. But if J&B did this work, they wouldn't have to pay them those jacked up ARA wages. They could pay them their normal wages. So something like granite curbing or any other job, even paving, if they hire a local paving guy, and when I say local, Continental's local, they're a New Hampshire company, the normal Continental rates might be lower than what we see in our self-mast pricing, and our drainage
And
pricing.
Continental would say, okay, to pay me higher for this, but for this part, pay me lower?
Yeah.
Now, the technical thing you just said was it's a non-eligible task
Right,
under what would be the federal requirements.
right.
I apologize, I'm gonna fall to your expertise when you were saying that, because I had a general understanding that some of this ARA money, when they talked about New Hampshire, that New Hampshire had an exemption from that type of situation, because, just hear me out, that there was a situation, and maybe I'm wrong, I'd heard it, and like I say, I'll fall on your expertise for it, but I thought there was an understanding out there, because a lot of these jobs did not exist in New Hampshire, and where a lot of this ARA funding was to bring people within those states where that money came, that there was an exemption not an exemption, but there was a forgiveness of that.
Can I,
For Davis-Bacon.
if we.
I'm just saying regarding those ARA project monies, because there was a question, I mean, if someone who knows much
I
more
don't-
than
Maybe
me.
it was a Buy American provision that you.
There's no exemption from that.
No, it
I
was
don't
a-
know about things like HUD projects or any of
Okay.
those other, but for the DES and DOT ARA money, there's no
Okay.
forgiveness of any of it.
If we were to put this out to bid, and in the bid documents itself, it listed the timeframes where we expect construction to start on this date and to be finished, or 80% completion by this date, and that's part of your agreement or your bid, could we get these documents kinda turned around to facilitate that? Because there is some, I'm hearing both sides of this, and it's obviously, it's not an easy decision. But on one hand, if, one side of the coin says, well, you've already put this project out to bid, and this is what you got, and then they were the low bid, and if you were simply going to use most of these costs, unit costs, they've already got the low bid from this last project, so why would that be any different? But by the flip side, as to what you were saying, David, if Dolore knew that they were essentially already there, then perhaps their mobilization would go down. They may see some cost benefit because they're already at the scene. They may also drive the price down to a large degree. I mean, I'm just gonna speak my piece. If
You would say they drove it up.
That's not what you said.
No, I'm just saying, there's two schools of thought here. I think I'm of the inclination to do this project the right way, and that is with granite curbing and to try to use some of the gateway elements of it. If we're gonna do it, I think we should do it right so that we don't have future maintenance, and I guess what I'm trying to do is, I'm trying in my mind to grapple with, what's the best way of trying to obviously get the best bang for our buck here? And is it best to, change order it, or is it best to put it out to bid to drive that price as best we can? And Nick, you wanna chime in?
Just one last thing, and not that we're in the employment, industry, but, Delory is a Massachusetts company, and maybe their expertise is green drainage or whatever, and they were the low bidder. But I think every time we have large projects like this, there are local construction companies that are feeling the same pain as everybody else, and when they don't have an opportunity to bid on projects like this, I think it sends the wrong message. And the economy the way it is, we have companies that are local that don't have to move equipment from Massachusetts. They may very well be very motivated to give us good prices on this project. And it gives them an opportunity to keep those dollars local.
I think the key here is that we need to know, as part of their agreement then, that they will start this project by June 20th, and that they're gonna have 80% completion by September 1. And that's, to me, I'm comfortable.
Let Carl answer
Yeah.
that.
Well, I see one major flaw there's one fly in the ointment with that plan, and in regards to schedule. We can put in our bid document that this contractor bidding on this work has to adhere to X schedule. But there is always, whenever you do something like that, there's an act of God provision.
No, I think we understand that.
But there's
Yeah.
a huge element here that contractor has no control over, and that's Delory Construction, who's gonna be working in the same work zone. So, to make it all gel, that contractor would have to jive with Delory Construction, who, if they bid and are unsuccessful in the bid, what incentive is there on Delory Construction's part to work with,
Do they have a timeline in their current contract?
yeah, December 1st or something like that of this year? So they, Delory, whereas if you take the change order route, now it's all Delory. They've got to juggle the schedule. You can put that same, the change order can have those same provisions. It's got to hit this schedule. They have control of 100% of the scheduling element, and then you could hold their feet to the fire. Whereas if you have two contractors overlapping work zones, there's just an element of non-control there that I don't think you'll find a contractor that isn't gonna be somewhat hesitant to do that.
Wasn't there an expectation on the green drainage though that would be done before school reopened?
Yeah, which
I
means
mean-
all summer long, when you're trying to do this roundabout, they'll be right there doing their project, saying, hey, we gotta get this done before school starts.
No, but I'm saying there was an understanding that, you know, and speaking, if we did go out for bid and there was a different company involved, the expectation still was to have the green drainage done before school
Right.
opened. Alright,
But you just said December.
that's
That's their contract completion.
completion, but the expectation still was before school opened. And I would imagine there's an interest for them to have that done
Oh, yeah.
prior to them, because
Yeah.
I'm
And-
sure
and
they have
they
other
wanna-
projects they wanna get to too.
I don't wanna give the board the impression they're not working with, because they're working very well with us. I mean, I'm just saying, there's a potential fly in the ointment in that
Alright.
if they,
And is there, yeah.
Just one other thing too, one other thing that I see on there too is, when you have the two different construction companies and what you're talking about, the coordination between the two, one of the big, for example, one of the big issues that I would see would be, let's say, the flagging. Because each one of these guys, everybody that comes to bid this now is gonna have to bid this with flagging as though they need to do the entire project. Now, you have this other group or organization that's already there, where they're looking at from one end to the other end with flagging. Where if they're separate companies, you have that coordination between, exactly, and I can see that as,
Let me ask a question, if we've got two companies working at the same, couldn't we consolidate the flagging?
I
mean,
don't know how you.
don't companies get together and do wouldn't be the first time that you have multiple companies doing road work?
Well, normally you have a contractor-subcontractor
Exactly.
relationship there.
You have done.
Two prime contractors butting heads on work zones where they're both on the hook with their bonds and they're both on the hook with deadlines. I mean, you hope it would all work and they're all professional, but there's no guarantee it's all gonna work. Whereas if you have a prime and he's got his subs, you got one guy ultimately responsible for it.
Two motions.
Any further discussion? What's the difference, I have one. Obviously, this is not my business and I don't have a firm understanding of some of the issues, but if you were doing a construction project, I mean, there are sometimes you have multiple contractors on site and then it's the general contractor who's trying to coordinate everything. Obviously, that would place more emphasis or more resources from the town, because we're gonna have to maybe make peace or coordinate things a little better, we know. But is it unusual to have multiple, I mean,
Yeah.
it's unusual.
Well, on our jobs it is. I mean, you get into massive building jobs, probably not, but in our jobs it is. And keep in mind that contractually, we are the owner, but we've hired McFarland Johnson to play the role of contract administrator. So McFarland Johnson, on the ARA project, is ultimately responsible for all the paperwork and coordination with the contractor.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Chairman, let's make the point closer to home. If you were totally renovating your kitchen and dining room, would you hire two general contractors? One for the dining room and one for the kitchen. They have adjoining walls they have to build around. That, just like Carl's saying, that normally would not be done.
Yes.
Assuming Delory did both projects, would we then be able to remove the flagging and uniformed officers out of this project since they're already hired in the green drainage?
Well, there would certainly be more, you know, you'd need a third leg up Wallace and you'd extend the time frame. So I don't think you could
You say a
completely.
third leg up Wallace.
You know, right now, Delory's working in the straight shot from essentially Hill House's house to Pine Ridge. They're not really dealing with the Wallace Road intersection. As soon as you move into the Wallace Road intersection, now you got Worthley and Wallace dumping into it, so there's extra flagging. So I don't think you can completely eliminate it, but that's the type of item where the economy of scale will show up. They will combine those efforts.
So the green drainage is not in the intersection?
No. There's the crossover pipe just north
That's right.
of the intersection.
Just, it's at,
So they're adjacent work zones, if they're not
Adjacent.
working within each other's
Correct.
work zone.
They butt up against each other, but they're not.
it stops at the pond, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, cause I had the impression before when you were saying that they were gonna be working in each other's work zone. They're adjacent to each other, but
Adjacent.
not.
Yeah.
It stops right at the pond.
They intermingle just like that.
Right, there's a slight overlap. There's a slight overlap.
There'll be a foot of unpaved road between the.
Okay, so
Right
then I
before
guess,
Lamson
how would
apartment,
one
right?
slow down the
Windows,
other?
Instead of,
Yeah.
yeah.
Cause my truck's gotta get through his work zone to get where they're going, and his truck's gotta come through, you know.
And for the next half hour, I gotta give priority for cars going that way, and the other one says, I can't handle that volume. I gotta give priority for the cars going the other way.
Not an easy decision,
Can be
but
mucky,
nonetheless,
Has
we
to
need
be
to
made.
make one.
Yeah, I guess an easy way to, try an easy way of doing it, is that these two contractors are not meeting on a regular basis to coordinate and schedule their work together as one, because they're separate entities with separate contracts, with separate, ways of getting there.
Kind of. The process of the bid is to make sure that it's competitive. That's the bottom line of the bid, correct? And it doesn't, with that being said, if we were to go out to bid, then this process should bring it to that this group would be the most competitive, or at least be close within reason. Is that fair to say?
But would they be as low as they would be if you just sole sourced? I think that's the big question.
Right. And that's where I disagree. That's what my issue is, that if I'm Delory, and I know that it's gonna cost anybody else X amount of money, this range, to get their equipment here, I'm already here. I don't have that expense. Okay? You know what? I can double, I can split that difference and add that right up front, because I'm already here and they're putting out the bid and there's nobody that can can come to my number.
Can I ask one question? I mean, if you gave these specs to Delory and said, we're looking to do a change order, give me a price, this shouldn't take all that long for them to give you a
They're
price.
planning on having a price to you next Monday.
Okay,
Okay. I wanna make a motion, first of all, that, we accept the scope of the roundabout and
The added
Wallace
ones.
Road and Worthley intersection and the alternatives as a decision of this board to be approved. That should be our first decision.
Okay, so-
That's my
okay,
motion.
so you're,
Essentially,
Well,
the
you're-
scope
you're-
of project as defined here, that's my motion.
okay, but I need to know this.
Do we have alternatives?
There are alternatives, and I think that's where, whether or not you're gonna be going with, and I think this is a good starting point for us. There are different alternatives, and I think we need to make some decisions relative to those alternatives. So you
That's-
wanted to rephrase it, and now we can go with, start with page one, which was the roundabout itself.
Include alternative one.
Okay, you wanna do this separately or altogether?
Altogether.
Okay.
On the second page, which is addressing Wallace Road. These are cumulative, Carl, right?
Yes.
So.
Yeah, all one is curving and all.
So, that's what I thought my motion said originally, including alternatives one and two, and the same thing on the Worthley intersection, including alternatives one and two.
Well, wait a minute.
They're all alternative, they're all additive.
Question though?
Yes, sir.
On page 2, or what you're saying, Dave, is the base project plus alternative 1 plus alternative 2?
Because you notice under
I thought
alternative,
it was alternative 1 or alternative.
if you notice under
No.
alternative two, the first line item is minus $8,000.
It's kind of option one and option two.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Just because we got this tonight, that's why
Yeah.
okay.
Option would have been a better word.
All right, so then we're looking at the bottom line number then?
Right.
Which adds like selectmen,
Let's just call it 600.
Zeno mentioned 500,
590,
It's
594.
600.
yeah, so.
Okay. So we have a motion on the table, that is to, proceed with an overall scope of work, which is reflective of the, on page number 1, alternative 1, page number 2, alternative 1 and 2, and same for page 3, which would be alternative 1 and 2. And do I have a second on that?
Also.
Seconded by Selectman Devanz. Any further discussion? The big thing here, I think, is whether you're gonna go with concrete and brick accents, or whether you're just gonna put asphalt. Those are and then the whole issue with, say, cobblestone, which, those are the issues. Yes, sir.
Question on the Worthley Hill Road realignment. I know we talked about getting the project done before school or before the summer end. Is this realignment all set to go? Are there any issues we have to deal with in taking Worthley Hill and changing it?
I don't believe so. We have the actual warranty deed, it's all recorded, so I think we're good to go. It's just a case of building it, there's no wetlands involved on that point or anything, so I think we're good.
Nothing property on the property that it's going through?
I believe that the gentleman who purchased,
Have you seen this?
yeah, have you seen that yet? That was like last.
It was presented last week to us. You weren't here.
In this property that it's going through? The
That's what
easement?
he's talking about.
Yeah.
It's an easement?
Yeah, it's all recorded.
That was my concern.
Okay. We'll take our vote then, I'm sorry.
I'd like to comment on it. and I'll probably end up being the one on the out on this. What we've taken is this project, and we've gone from original conversations of around 350, and I understand we added Wallace, we added the other piece, but we're now up at 600,000. I did not, when we first voted on these projects, I did not vote on a $600,000 project. I voted on a $350,000 project. I also voted on a $350,000 project that we thought we were getting a grant on, which means it wasn't even gonna be $350 to the town. And so I have to sit here and say, I've gone from 100, technically that grant was gonna be 50%, correct? We were hoping for roughly. So essentially, what I was voting for at that given time was $175,000. Now we're at 600,000. I'm not saying it's not, I'm not saying, and I am in agreement with the circle. And I think, and I think because things have changed, I still would like to go forward, and I voted to go forward with the project, understanding that, but now we've gotten from what I considered around 175,000 to 200 to 600,000. So I'm not quite ready for the Cadillac plan on the circle is where I'm at, and I think we should seriously think about that. Regarding how we go forward with this. That's my comment.
Any other comments?
Can I make a suggestion that perhaps the way to do it then, because I guess what I have a concern about is the project that we started out with, we've added there are two other things that are distinct and separate from the roundabout, from the Wallace Road, Mass Road intersection, okay? We currently have a project, Viking Orchards, in front of the planning board, that there are off-site improvement fees that are based on Wallace, Worthley Hill Road and Wallace Road intersection. That's a separate issue from the Wallace Road, Mass Road intersection. We have this section of road that goes to the high school that needs to be reclaimed, that has gotten to that point after the determination of the Wallace Road, Mass Road intersection project. So there are three things that we're looking at. So my suggestion then is, I don't want a Wallace Road, Mass Road intersection to be construed to be a total project that includes the Worthley Hall, Wallace Road intersection, and a reclaiming of a section of Wallace Road to the high school.
So then split the motion up.
So let's split them up, so nobody can say that the 350 went to 600. The 350 is gonna go to a different number with the upgrades, then the Worthley Hill, Wallace Road will be a separate project, and the reclaim will be a separate project, and we're just happening to do them all at the same time.
All right, then if that's the case, if that's the consensus of the board, I would need the motioner to withdraw, the seconder to also withdraw their motion, if that's what they're so inclined to do.
Next over here.
I'm comfortable with how the vote would go and stand on each project to stand on their own merits.
Is there, you would
Yeah, I-
prefer to withdraw, so now we have no motion on the table.
I'll
Nick?
withdraw.
Just a quick question on the contribution from the contractor. It was 25% of the Worthley realignment, which comes out to 7,900, and 2% of the Wallace Road comes out to 86, 87, so $16,000 contribution to the whole project, 666.
All right,
Motion?
you wanna make a comment
I
first?
wanna make one last comment. And what I'm talking about, Phil, and I understand what you're saying, that you're breaking it up into three projects. And I realize now, when sitting here now, at the time when we were talking about it back then, the scope of the project expanded, and I think that's something that we should have been talking about up front. That's a large case of the point for when we go forward for other projects. It's kind of the same thing that happened in Grassmere. We talked to Circle, and I understand it turned it into a separate project and it went down, I can understand that, but those are the things we should be talking about up front. If we're saying, hey, we're gonna be doing the Circle, we understand there are arteries that come into it. If we're saying we're going to make, as we look at it, we should be we should have the forethought to be looking at it, saying, you know what? While we're here, we're gonna go the 100 feet up here. In other words, we all would have been standing around talking about the original scope. So even breaking it out, I realize what you're doing, it still comes to 600,000. It's
Okay,
like
for
buying
one,
a,
I think for
but I understand what you can make your motions.
these decisions we make are never, in a vacuum, and it's never in a perfect world. Originally, this intersection was earmarked, I believe it was 8 years ago on CIP. It could even be more than that, but you're a better historian than I am on that, so.
You're talking Wallace?
I'm talking Wallace and Mast. It's been up there in terms of an intersection that needed improvement forever. In fairness to this board and prior boards, Viking Orchards was a relatively new project, and there is a 25% contribution. It is a screwed up intersection there, and this is an opportunity to fix it.
Just also a point, this is not the first time we've discussed it, because that's been to this board, and we've had the discussions on how to do the realignment.
Right, now
So this is not the first time this has ever been brought up.
The other issue, which I think is fair criticism, and that is, should we extend to the high school? And that's fair, but by the same token, if you're going to deal with an intersection and the mobilization cost, and more importantly, the inconvenience to the citizens, I think you try to bite your bullet and do it all at one time. That's just my opinion.
If I could just comment on that, because I see the roundabout, and I understand the costs that have gone up in that separate project. In the realm of everything, the realignment of Worthley Hill is a small project. It's small dollars, it's quick, but you can use the same argument, $127,000 for extending from the roundabout up to the high school entrance. That's several roads that can be done. We have to do Wallace. It's gonna be done at some point. So whether we get the savings now when we mobilize from the roundabout to the high school entrance, or when we do Wallace, instead of stopping there, we continue down to the roundabout, you're gonna achieve those same savings, one now, or one when we do it later on. I think what you will do, though, is you reduce the scope of the project, and you increase the odds of it getting done by the end of the summer. Then you do Wallace at a later date, whenever that isn't on the road plan, and you continue, and you get that project done within the summer. So I think we could spend those dollars, the $130,000, on some other roads that really need it, and still gain those savings later on when we do Wallace in its entirety.
Or is that part of, and I realize there's a conception of this gateway. And for me personally, I'm not sure if Wallace Road is my gateway to the town, okay? And there are several ways, like Nick's saying there, that would change the pricing, or the idea of, do we need concrete walkway going up to the high school? I'm not sure. I mean, those are the things that we can talk about and change, or you can take it at its full conceptual and go with what I call the Cadillac plan here. I mean, this is what we're talking about a little bit, for at least in my scope as I look at it.
All right, yep.
There's been several studies in the past, I don't know exactly how many of them and all of them, but when the Main Street program was initially developed, the discussion was, where does it start? What part is Main Street, what's the gateway, what's the village, where does it start and where does it end? And my recollection is that many times, and every time it's come up, is that it started at the Wallace Road intersection and went up to High Street intersection. And that's the area that the Main Street program involved with. Or the Main Street, where does the sign start?
They stop at the Exxon,
Well, okay, they reduced, the Main Street program reduced it, but my recollection is that that's considered the entrance to the village.
It goes back to the corridor study,
That's the one.
the one that Wilbur Smith and Associates did,
Right.
where they viewed the village node concept starting at Wallace, going through the church.
So,
Yep.
So following that thought, if I'm coming from Manchester into the gateway, and I go through the roundabout, and I've got concrete sidewalks and brick, what do I hit next, heading into the village?
Well, this section that, we've got asphalt from the roundabout to wherever the concrete starts at the bridge. It's all asphalt.
So is it affecting the gateway if we don't go from the Wallace Road roundabout up to the high school with brick? We have it around, I mean, it's gonna be around the roundabout, whether we do, I mean, if that's our gateway, are we talking two different things, continuing it all the way up to the high school? That's not our gateway.
And we will be sitting here with conversations regarding sidewalks after this, where we're gonna be saying we don't have the funding.
We do need sidewalks one way or another, 'cause
If you don't do the sidewalks now, they're gonna get delayed. Year after year. This is our opportunity to make one intersection as perfect as we can get it, without having to come back piecemeal and fight among other projects to do it.
I think there's been a lot of very good discussions had here. One of the things that, Carl, maybe you could respond to is an argument that Selectman Fournier talked about, maybe it was Selectman Campusano, I'm not really sure, but the odds of this whole thing getting finished, we always think that they get finished, but if we did focus solely on the roundabout and we tackled the other pieces next year, that might solve a couple of issues. One, if there was a change order for Delore, that might satisfy the notion that when we put the next one out to bid, because we won't have abutting projects, it will not, we could focus in on a couple of different roads in town that might need it, or not to spend it at all. So that, because if we're not gonna get it done anyway, then why not wait till the next construction season? I don't know, just,
Well, let me just.
so that much mobilization savings that we're gonna have, that's what I'm curious.
Well, let me just respond, because I was gonna respond to one thing anyway, and Nick is correct in that if we were gonna do Wallace Road soon, we could do it either way, but keep in mind, Wallace Road was, the first road plan was prior to the road plan, but that section from the high school up was done in 1999, so it'll be a long time before we're actually going back, I hope, reclaiming Wallace Road again.
We only started from the high school and went up?
Yeah, and the reason was, as Scott said, when we did that in 99, the intersection was in CIP for, I think it was like 2 years later, or something like that, so we got as far down as the high school and said, well, we don't know what's gonna happen, what we wanna do with the intersection, or any of that, so we just ended the project at the high school and said, when we do the intersection, we'll deal with it. Then, to Steve's frustration, it kinda dropped through the cracks on our end, we've been talking, focused on the intersection, kinda forgot about that little chunk of Wallace Road till we went up there and we started looking at the realignment of Worthley and said, we got this couple hundred feet of Wallace we never did, and so it was very much an afterthought, and we should have been on top of that, but we missed it. So that's the first thing, but the second thing is, I can't address the schedule issue. I mean, I could sit here and hypothesize all night long, but I have no idea what Delore or any other contractor's current workload is. I don't know if Delore has 3 crews he could throw on this and get it done in 3 months, or if he's gonna have 1 crew up here in New Hampshire and he's got all kinds of work in Mass that he's gotta do. When we extend the contract with him and have those discussions, we can put it right on the table, we expect a completion date of, and either he's gonna say, yes, I can do it, or no, I can't, and he'll sign on the dotted line. But until we get to that point, whether we go out to bid to get to that point, or whether we sit down and discuss a change order to that point.
If I may, I'm going to just make a suggestion, and if we were to kind of meet in the middle here, because I think politics is the art of the compromise, if we did isolate the 3 projects, and the first is the roundabout, and that were to be done obviously this year with a change order. And that was the only thing that were to get done. And then the following year, in the 2011 cycle, we then put out to bid the fix on Wallace and Worthley and go back and go up to the high school and put that out to bid. That would, in essence, solve a lot of problems. One, it separates the project so that the roundabout itself is an isolated thing, and then the other, part is put out to bid. I'm a little concerned is that all these things would even happen anyway if they were all lumped together. Maybe that's a fair compromise on this.
I just have one question.
Yeah.
On the Viking Orchard, on the, Worthy Wallace Road, we're not in jeopardy of losing any of that money if we do that.
That was a condition of approval. on
So
the
they have to,
subdivision.
whenever
I
it's
just wanna
done.
make sure that we're not.
We haven't received the money because we haven't given them the final cost yet. So it's not like it's waiting to be used.
Matter of fact, if I could throw caution into the wind, I
Estimates.
don't have a problem with holding off on Wallace, because it's not gonna change anything. But one of the beautiful things about the realignment of Worthley is it gets it away from the roundabout. It makes a safer, so, like Selectman Campusano said, that's really a kind of a small number. And if we did the roundabout and Worthley, that would be great. And if you wanted to hold off on a chunk of Wallace, it's like, okay, but
The art of compromise, why don't we do a shim and overlay? That'll buy the time for that section of the road until we redo Wallace.
Would it last that long?
well, I'm not worried about the road, it's the sidewalk. Right now, there's only about an inch and a half of curb reveal, because Wallace has been overlaid so many times, so doing something with the sidewalk, we've checked the drainage is essentially fine, like there's no major.
So maybe do a
drainage problems.
sidewalk repair or something.
The sidewalk and a shim or an overlay, you might be able to
All right,
get
so
by with.
we've massaged okay, David, I don't wanna stop you. It seems, is it a fair compromise to proceed with going with the roundabout and the Worthley Hill fix? And we'll put off the other one to next year? That will shave off almost $130,000, and then we'll tackle it next year?
Let's just stop there for a second. Oh, sorry.
I'm confused.
Go.
Okay.
I understand the Worthy, and I understand the Wallace, and you're there, I understand those pieces, I'm disappointed that we're at 600, we understand that, but I'm not gonna be foolish about this process. I think if we're going to do the Worsley part, now is the time to do it. I agree with the section of the road there, I'm just saying when we go to the alternatives 1 and 2, that's what we should be talking about. I don't, to say, hey, we'll hold it and do it next year, it doesn't make any sense, okay? I'm just saying that the scope of the project, I mean, everyone would like it to be the nicest with concrete all over the place. I will just say this in all honesty, is that when let's say we go to Grassmere Circle, we have these sidewalks there, et cetera, but it's nice and all that, but could it have been done in a different manner? That, my opinion would be yes. I don't know if we're getting the value for all this big curb and concrete sidewalks up there. And I'm not saying that in here that, that maybe in the center where you say it's important to the plow, but do I need concrete sidewalk going up to the high school? That's another question for me.
That's a 16,000.
I mean, you have to start looking at some of these things. And what happens, once we build the project up, we start saying, what's another 16, what's another 10, what's another 20? I know that we sat here around at budget time, and we were talking about $33,000 for a police cruiser.
Anyone else?
At this final pitch, this is our opportunity to have all the construction done at once and not take the risk that this board will think the same way next year. I would like to see the motions come in as the whole project as it's laid out. If you want it three motions, I'll make 3 motions.
I think, from what I'm gathering, I think things would stand better chances.
In conclusion, the Mass Road, the leg going up Wallace, we're gonna pay for work to be done on that leg going a short way up Wallace, and then that work's gonna be torn up the following year, as you do Worthley intersection. So that's a waste of effort and money.
No, Weatherly was
Yeah.
gonna be included.
I think you're missing the scheduling that we're talking about.
Maybe I am.
My understanding is we're looking at, everybody appears to, be in concurrence, or it appeared to me, Worthley Hill,
Yep.
Wallace Road, and Wallace Road, Mass Road should be done together. The issue was from Worthley up to the high school,
So,
whether or not.
on this drawing from the crosswalk that's at Worthley intersection, up
To the high school.
to the high school.
Right,
To hold off on that.
hold off on that portion.
I could compromise with that.
Let's take these one at a time. Let's go with the roundabout itself. I just need a motion. You can put alternative and
I'll make a
include it or
motion
not.
to go forward with the page one on the, Wallace Road roundabout, with alternative number one.
And I second that.
That's been motion, second, discussion. You have discussion?
Yeah, I was gonna prefer if we could have done it individually, cause there's probably people that want to do the intersection but may not want to do the alternative, and they're forced to vote one way or another. It's kind
Fine.
of like a conflicting, whereas if we did just the base price.
We're gonna really
and then-
break this down into.
Yes, we are.
You know what I mean?
I agree with Nick,
We're gonna
cause,
be online
'cause
items.
I'll end up being a nay vote. It's
Right, and you-
looking,
but
I
you
didn't
wanna
want the
do
circle, but I'm just not at the Cadillac plan.
23 line items here.
Okay, that's what we'll do. If that's what this board wants, that's what you get. You can either withdraw your motion, or you can proceed. How do you want it? You're the one who put it on, and you're the one who seconded it, so it's your decision whether or not you wanna break it down into even smaller pieces.
Well, I don't mind, I just thought that I did that for the sake of speed, because I thought
Okay.
there was a concurrence on that.
It could be.
There
mean,
does not appear to be a concurrence,
No,
so.
now there isn't, but there,
Okay.
but that's what I thought, and that's why I
Alright.
did it, to get through to page
Is
two.
your motion standing? Is
So
that what
I'll
it's,
change, I'll change it, and I'll do, that we go forward with the.
Base.
The base? Okay.
But didn't we already vote on that portion
No,
of this?
we did not.
No.
No, we did not,
At a
so.
previous meeting?
Selectman
Yeah,
Devanza,
maybe at a previous
just-
meeting.
Selectman Devanza, do you withdraw your motion on the previous motion?
Sure.
And do you withdraw your motion? Your second, and your,
Second.
okay,
Yes.
so now would you like to make another motion?
I'll make a motion to go forward with the, base project overall total cost.
And do I have a
of Wallace
second?
Road roundabout.
Second.
Okay, enough discussion's been had. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That motion is unanimous, probably the only one. Next. Next, do I have another motion?
Motion to do alternative one on the Mass Road roundabout, which is brick and concrete sidewalk at the roundabout.
Is there a second? Is a second by Selectman Devanza.
Don't break.
I don't think there's any need for further discussion here either. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those against?
Nay.
3-2 motion passes. Next is the Wortherly Hill Mass Road reconstruction.
Make
I'm
a-
sorry,
No.
no, scratch that. Page 2 is the Wallace Road, extending it from the roundabout to the entrance of the high school. Is there a motion to proceed or to not proceed?
Do we need a motion if we're not gonna proceed if we don't make a motion to proceed?
Well, there could be a motion to proceed next year, and even though it's not binding, but it's still. This is up to you.
Page 2 is from the roundabout all the way to the high school. Am I understanding that correctly, Carl?
I would guess yes, but I don't know that for certain. I would guess the way the third page is worded, where it's the road realignment, I would guess you're correct.
Yeah. So,
Just out to Wallace.
it's hard to tell from this estimate that, page 2 is addressing the whole length of Wallis. And if we were to cut that in half, I doubt if we would cut these expenses totally in half. So I'm making an argument for the motion to cover the whole project, not half the project.
Well, we're gonna try a different approach, since it's the chair's prerogative. If I may, let's go to page 3. This way people can vote on what pieces they want. This one would be to proceed, I need a motion to proceed with the Wortherly Hill Road realignment, with or without alternatives 1 or 2.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Bates.
Which one? The base? Okay, all those, I need a second.
Second.
And, any discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor of proceeding with the Wortherly Hill Road realignment base project cost of $19,246, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion is unanimous. Is there another motion?
Motion to add alternative 1 and 2 to achieve, concrete sidewalk, brick curbing.
Can we
Question?
Well,
Actually, let me get a second first, just so it's official, so we have it.
Well, my question gonna determine whether or not I'm even.
Okay, I'm gonna second it for discussion purposes. Now, Phil, you go.
The sidewalk, on that project, how far up does it go?
Just, right now, there's a sidewalk. The triangle property, there's a sidewalk, you come down Worthley, it crosses at that property and it comes along, and then it cuts through the yard. So right at Lamson, the sidewalk kinda
Oh, I'm sorry.
ends.
Can I see that in a minute?
That little J shape.
Yeah, it's a very short section, just brings it around to Wallace.
Can I ask a question at the same time?
Oh, sure.
Just some clarity too, you know that passageway that does go through that triangle, that walkway? Is that the town's land, or is that the gentleman's land being nice enough to let kids go through there?
It was always, the gentleman was nice enough to let kids go
Okay.
through.
And so.
Now the town has an easement across it, but
Okay, and we do intend a sidewalk through there, or is that gonna still be a, okay.
See, that one,
that's where the road will be.
it already is asphalt right now. So you would have concrete and then it'll butt and it'll go. So that's, in my opinion, that one doesn't make sense, but.
You're adding the side, my motion adds $11,000, $12,500 for the project. You can't come back in next year and get that done for $12,500. It's gonna be much more. Do it now. That's what my motion.
Question that I have, sidewalk, will we have sidewalk going up Worthley Hill?
Mm-hmm.
It's
Is
granite
any of that
asphalt.
that's what?
It's granite curb with asphalt sidewalk.
And are we proposing to change any of that?
Just the very tip of the triangle.
Okay, so the majority of this sidewalk work is on Wallace.
Right.
That was my question.
Motion has been made, motion has been seconded.
That's for both alternatives
Um,
together?
It was for both.
Yes, it
Should it be split out?
You're looking at $1,640 on
Keep
the
it going.
sidewalk.
Okay. I have a question for myself here, is that I'm looking at this picture and I'm saying to myself, it's not gonna make any sense to put concrete, I think the granite curbing is a no-brainer. It gets so much use and that's, it just makes sense. But the beautification or the streetscape is the actual circle itself and right around it. This is going up and it's not really gonna be either that noticeable, and this is gonna butt against, to me, the concrete doesn't make sense there, but the granite curb does, but that doesn't give you an option to do that. And that's $7,500, so I could be, am I mistaken there? I mean, as you look at this right now,
Scott, it's not, alternative two, the
Yeah.
upcharge is $1,600, that's the concrete, that's asphalt to concrete. The concrete you're looking at is the back up the curb. The 7,500, that's concrete to bed the
To
curb.
set the granite.
oh, okay, I gotcha, okay. Okay, so we'll proceed. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those against say nay.
Nay.
Nay. Motion fails. So, in that particular case, that would not be granite curbing as we just voted. The only way to get the granite curbing is what option?
Alt 1.
I will make a motion then to proceed with Alt 1. Is there a second?
Yes.
Seconded by Selectman Camposano. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against?
Nay.
4-1, motion passes. Now we'll go to 2. Second page, start off with, if I can get a motion with regard to the base project. Is there a second?
Yes.
Okay, any discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against say nay. Nay. Can I get everybody's votes again? All those in favor of proceeding with the base project, which is extending to the high school, say aye.
Aye.
All those against say nay. Nay. Would you vote on that?
He's thinking.
Keep in thought.
Did you sucker us again on one of your wishy-washy thingies? Did you?
He's silent over there.
Carl, you've seen this in your years here, correct? You pulled a
That's
Devanza or
abstain.
something? Is that an abstain?
What?
Did you abstain?
No, I'm not abstaining. Well, you didn't vote for either
Well,
one.
vote for one.
We already voted.
Yeah.
You didn't vote.
Then the
You gotta vote
motion-
when you
yeah.
say vote.
Yeah,
You
the
can't do
motion
it later.
fails. Is there another motion?
Do we watch it and then decide
I know.
after the vote comes
I
out?
didn't abstain.
He didn't say anything yet. He's gonna say one of those 3 words, so we can wait.
This is for the portion going up. I'm voting no on it.
Okay, then that motion fails.
What's the vote?
2-3.
Who was for?
Selectman Pierce and Selectman Fournier. And against was, the rest of us.
The alternative then.
I'm just gonna say this, if I ever have to go out to dinner with you guys, I don't think I would do it, but anyway, I mean,
Who made that motion anyway? You went faster than I.
Had to
Who
be
made
Mr.
it and seconded that motion?
Mr. Pierce made the motion, seconded by.
No?
No,
It was you?
I made the motion?
Yeah. Maybe we're not going out to lunch with you.
And I said, so-
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
you're out to lunch, my friend, okay.
Oh, boy.
Okay, that's one aspect done. Now, the, next is to, whether or not to, proceed with a change order through Delore or to go out to bid.
Can we hold off on that though until Carl comes back? Can we have a discussion with Carl next week?
Oh, God, no.
No, no.
I don't wanna
no.
ask Delory for numbers if you're going out to bid.
Yeah, that's fair to that.
Okay, no, all right, no, because we didn't have that, you just made a comment before about, it. That's why I asked the question.
I thought about that too, but I figured they probably wouldn't give numbers if they knew they were gonna go out to bid afterwards.
Before we go too far, can we have an estimated tally from here, what we're doing?
Now you really.
No, just, I just wanna make sure I have clarity here.
Okay,
Good point. First.
we
I mean,
did,
there's been a lot of stuff, let's just have some
we
clarity.
did vote on page number 1, we voted for all, the base and the alternate, that was a 3-2 vote, and that was 434, 885.
Okay.
On, page 2, that failed. Nothing. And on page 3, we proceeded with, the 19,246 plus the 10,989.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
465.
From the discussion, what I gathered, when we tally up our quantities, whether it's to go out to bid, I assume we're going for the roundabout to Worthley, that you all
Correct.
understand that?
Yes.
Just in
Stops-
case.
Stops at that crosswalk.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, next order of business is, to, proceed with a,
Change order?
change order for the lorry or to go out to bid. We've talked about that, but if there's any reason for further discussion, we will. Not hearing any, that have a
I
motion.
do have a question.
You have a question?
Yeah, Carl, you made, comment before, earlier that they were prepared to come in with present numbers to you or next week?
That was what we were shooting for. If the board approved everything, we were gonna get them quantities tomorrow morning, and they were hoping to have a number to us in time for your packets for next week.
So, the question then is, they are comfortable and confident that they can deliver the time frame?
That would be part of the package, yes. I haven't had that conversation with them, but I think they've understood that from all the discussions we've had, that that's the whole point of this, is to try to get done before school. We would make that that would be part of the
And I
caveat
am
of
also
the change order.
assuming, is it a fair assumption that if we were to get their numbers and we did not like their numbers, then we could reject that and then go out to bid?
You could.
Okay.
That was my third question.
Because we're not bound, I mean, we can
You're
say,
not.
you know, just like, we've had this before with other contractors where we've asked for change orders and.
We have a thing though. If that's the case, those numbers can't be made public.
Correct.
What? If that's the case.
They're subject to a
those-
potential bid.
Right.
Oh, right.
That's an
Yes.
unfair
Their
advantage.
number
Right.
cannot be made public.
Correct.
Right.
And they have to know
That it
it's
will not be
gonna
made public.
Sounds like we're speaking from experience.
No, because then they would be put in an unfair disadvantage.
Absolutely.
Right, okay.
Right.
So,
Just a suggestion in the wording, and I'm just gonna throw this out. There could be monetary damages if they're not done by when school starts,
Liquidated damages, yes.
which is great for us, but really doesn't solve the issue with the congestion in school and the nightmare. And I don't know if this is a possibility, but maybe we look into establishing, let's say come September, an alternative drop-off point for parents away from high school and the cost of busing kids, almost like a shuttle service. And have those as those monetary figures as the liquidated damages, so that should they go on past September, not only are there monetary punishment there, but we also alleviate the traffic. We have parents that are not dropping kids off at the high school, they're going to another location, and then we have a shuttle from there to the high school.
Too bad we couldn't change the work schedule.
and the argument would be if I was that contractor, it's called a school bus.
Right, that's my point,
Right.
but we have to pay the truck center to do that, to establish new rules. It's not free.
Yeah, but I think the traffic that's going to the high school is generated by students who have opted not to take a school bus, but to drive their own vehicle.
Can this board tell the school board how to write their school contract for busing? I don't think so.
No, but if we establish another parking area for all those kids in their cars, they're not going to the school, but they don't have to walk.
And where would that, I mean, are we complicating this thing too much? I don't.
Just
Well,
saying,
my
sometimes a
concern-
contractor says, you know, if I go into September, I go into September, it costs me a little bit more, but I can use my equipment here for a month and make some more money.
I know, I hear you.
Should we change their work schedule
doesn't
if they
solve-
go into September?
What do you mean?
They don't work during school hours,
Gonna have them work at night?
weekends.
That'd be popular.
Yes, I have Nick,
I'm
and
gonna
I have Steve, then I'll take Phil.
Just playing devil's advocate a little bit, if I was the construction company, I think that we've already said this probably isn't gonna happen by the time that school opens, correct? I mean, I thought cause we were talking.
We have to
80%.
define, normally we would define it as substantial completion.
Yeah.
They're gonna have base asphalt down, they're gonna have the
But-
major work in the roads
but-
done.
But I guess what I'm saying is that if, looking at this project, and if I'm thinking I'm not gonna get done by by the time school opens, I'm going to add that into the price of my bid as a contingency, cause I don't think the reality is that this project does get done before school buses hit the road. I don't know. Just a thought, I'm just saying, I don't think this gets done before school opens.
Okay.
My concern on the liquidated damages, if we go heavy on liquidated damages requiring other things, that's gonna be built into
the bid.
the price of the
Exactly.
bid. And if he completes it by the time that he's supposed to, all that is money in his pocket. So I would prefer not to do
Just
that.
throwing it out.
That's what
Yeah,
I
How about
no,
the
I
carrot,
understand.
how about the carrot approach? A
Exactly.
bonus if he gets it done.
Yeah. A lot of contracts are done that way, I mean.
Well, what we could say is if he got it done by a certain date, well before school, then maybe he can finish Wallace Road.
All
Alright.
that labor money doesn't disappear.
Let's, I don't even know if we had, so do we have even a motion to proceed?
No, you asked for a motion.
I asked for a motion to proceed with a change order with Delore, and is there one? Because they're doing the green drainage and it would be, an extension of that, a change order.
So moved that the scope of what we've approved in the previous motions be added as a change order.
Okay, is there a second? Going once? Going twice?
I'll second it for discussion.
Seconded for discussion. We've discussed this. It's either we're going to eat the food or not eat the food, so, we wanna discuss it some more. We've heard the pros and cons. All right, we'll take a vote. All those in favor of proceeding with the change order, say aye.
Aye.
All those against?
Aye.
3-2, motion passes. All right. With that vote, it is critical for the board to recognize that once we do get these numbers next week, they are confidential. They cannot be distributed or disseminated to anyone, nor could they, what?
I don't
Because
follow that
it gives, if we were to reject it after next week, then the numbers must remain non-public, because then Delore would then have the opportunity to bid on this project, because we will then be putting it out to bid, and Delore would be put in an unfair position because the numbers would be made public.
I'm confused, aren't we using the same numbers that they already gave us on the green
It
drainage?
might be
Not
lower.
necessarily, it might be
It could be
lower.
lower.
Cause they're non-ARA, it's a non-ARA project.
So why would we reject it?
We may, I just don't, but if we reject it for some reason,
I hope you don't, but if you.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is, couldn't we get a rough estimate based on what the unit prices we already have? It could only get lower,
Well, that's essentially what you have.
so we already know what the price is.
I mean, this is
but
a
if
rough
it
estimate.
were, I guess my point is that we have to recognize that if we do not accept it, if we reject it, then these numbers have to be,
If we wanna pay more.
you may not necessarily pay more. You don't know.
Well, we just said we don't wanna go out to bid because it's gonna cost us more.
We don't
And
know
all
that,
of
we
those
don't have the bid, we don't know if it's more.
So why did we just do a change order?
I think the confusion is, and I think the issue, the point here is, that they're gonna come back with a price. That price could be rejected by this board, if this board chooses to reject the price and put it out to bid. If those numbers were made public, that's unfair, because that would be a public number. These numbers that you're talking about that are on here, that are in this project, okay, these are not non-public, these are not non-public.
So I wonder what non-public is that coming with?
You're really actually
You're
negotiating a price.
negotiating.
That's right. You would put somebody unfairly.
we negotiate? We're not
It will put
negotiating,
another
right?
party at unfair advantage, and it would be a
Right.
disservice to taxpayers of Goffstown.
For
to do that.
land?
It's not-
Isn't that only land purchase?
No,
No.
any negotiation.
I'm,
This only,
and I don't wanna belabor, belabor the point, but I'm missing the negotiation part. They're giving us a price, and we're gonna either accept it or reject it.
We
That
could
doesn't sound like a
look-
negotiation.
If you
we may-
reject it and
we-
go out to bid, they may bid, and everyone will know their estimated price, or the price they gave us to do it. Not to say that would be the price that they would bid.
Right. And I know the project Phil's thinking of, it did cost the town more when we went out to bid.
Yeah.
It's happened twice.
Yeah.
All right, any other discussion? All right, we're gonna take a break. And I believe we have to go into non-public.
Don't we still have the road plan?
We do, oh yeah, we have the road plan.
Carl's not done.
I think we still need a break,
Okay.
right? Let's take a break, let's take a 5-minute break. Live. Next order of business is the 2010 road program. And first and foremost, are there any questions with regard to the proposal that was presented last week?
Yes.
We have a question.
Just a couple, I wanna just go through some numbers. Encumbered money, I have 350 here. Was there, cause I look at what we encumbered at the end of the year in December, and it's like 4 something.
460.
Was there invoices that came in after? Is that why?
No, there's actually 460 in encumbered money. This, we put it up here for the roads that were carried over from last year, what has to be done. But if they come up more, I mean, there's a little more on that PO than.
No, I don't follow.
Some of these roads that are on here carried over from last year. They were on last year's list. That's the 350, but there is some more left on that PO.
Okay, so where does that show up on the road plan?
It doesn't, it doesn't. You know, if those roads that were left last year come in over our estimates, it would come off that PO.
Okay. Oh, I guess because you're showing a total here, so I would just wonder why not all of the money be shown in this total, even though you have because now you show a budget remaining of 36.5.
Right, right. And we could, I mean, it's semantics, but it's, we could add it up top and it would show out at the bottom as leftover money, but it's, we tried to just.
Yeah, it's just because you look at this and you think this is all the road plan money.
Right.
But if there's something else out there, it'd be nice to just see that. Just going down, Carl, on the Lower Tibbet section reclaim, how large an area is that? It's not the 7,000.
No, the reclaim is just from, I don't know all the miles, but it's a
Ryan
very short,
Road and-
Ryan, it's the
It's a
worst,
really bad
worst,
part.
worst part. And then there's a little section of Lauren, while we're there, we'll reclaim. The rest of it will just get shimmed.
Is that an in-house reclaim, or which price are you using for that?
It's a blend of in-house reclaim and shimming, cause it's not, we're gonna shim the whole road, but that little piece we'll reclaim first.
The Montalona, let me see, I just wanna look at. Trying to line these up here. Plummer Hill Road, Center Street overlay, is that a mill and overlay?
Yes, it is.
And then, I just asked you about the trolley farm, is that paved now?
It has base pavement on it now. We have to put the top on it. That was that section last year, we put drainage in and we reclaimed it, and we put base asphalt on it. So it just needs the wear course put on it.
I'm glad to see Plummer Hill Road, that
Yeah.
road needs
It needs something.
something.
It needs more than a shim actually, but
Yes, but it,
for the
I think
4
those
cars a
people will be
day.
happy that
Yeah.
they can drive on it again once this is done. The last question I had, Mountain View, is that,
Yeah, we dropped that. off, I think. Let me line it up.
Yeah, I don't see it.
I see 1,000
Okay, yeah,
square
yeah.
yards, but it's coming up with 21. That's just a, that's a town reclaim?
Yeah, I think it was just a. I believe it is, cause we wouldn't put that out to bid, that's something that small.
And then Moset,
Yeah.
is that scheduled for reclaim? The Moset miles, they're on here, but there's no,
Oh, no, they're not. They're not scheduled. There wasn't enough money for those.
those are the questions I have.
Any other questions? We have to keep in mind too that in terms of the actions that were taken tonight, if you look specifically at the Mast Road roundabout and the Wallace Road and Worthley intersections, that was, in this, for 660, we approved 465, 120, for a difference of 194, 880. So we're all clear on that.
Say that again?
We took action tonight to reduce the scope, and that number, the Mast Road roundabout.
Look at this,
and-
the 660 to combine
The
is what you.
660
combined,
combined,
correct.
we took action to proceed with 465, 120,
Okay.
which leaves a difference of 194, 880.
But there's still gonna be an increase, cause we has to calculate what the cost from the roundabout to
Right.
Worthley crosswalk, so there is gonna be
Would not be
something.
prudent to rededicate that money right now.
I don't think.
No, there's no need to do it now.
Numbers. He has the numbers.
Yeah.
We'll know
yeah.
that on Monday, we'll know that.
Yeah, you have next Monday, we're opening the crack sealing bid, so we'll have a better number on crack seal.
I
We
have one
also
other
have the
question.
RFP for paving now.
Okay. This issue with cracks in, that's done every single year. And it seems to me, we talked about the town being in the road business, reclaiming, we've had that argument over and over again. Is there a benefit in terms of having a road crew, just like we do painting and some other things where they would do crack sealing? Because it's something that's done yearly.
They're not doing the same cracks. We do it yearly, but they go do.
They go in
They
different
do the
areas,
same
but I
roads,
guess
they-
what I'm pointing is that it's basically, it's a truck, you're blowing out all the debris, you're filling the crack. Is it something that we could do it, that it's a maintenance function? Is that something that, should we be doing that or not be
You
doing
like
that?
renting the equipment and doing it? Buying the equipment and
I
doing
mean,
it?
it's $100,000 a year. Is it
And-
something?
Well, and it's gonna
labor.
grow.
With no, with
Well, it
including
is,
labor.
it is
Right,
including labor,
right.
you're including everything.
But it's not unlike a road which requires a lot of heavy equipment. And I just threw that out, it's done every single, sure, we could say, no, we're not gonna do it, but.
I'm sitting here smiling, because if you've seen the crew that he contracts with to
Yeah.
do this,
No.
it is tough labor. The fellow who is blowing the cracks out and flaming it,
Claiming it, yeah.
they are running.
Okay, let's move on.
Doing it.
Wait a minute.
What are you trying to say, Mr. Pierce?
We would have, the negotiations on that contract would get
Okay,
eminently
next.
tougher.
Well, and I guess, to 2 points, I have a suggestion, but, the one point is, it's nice to add that additional job, but when you look at the reclaim sections they're doing, the, drainage, you get an act of God where the weather is bad, and they just,
Might not get it done.
they don't get it done, and it's something really with the maintenance
That
of the
needs to
roads,
get
you
done.
have to get it done.
Okay.
The second part that I had, and then, again, I'm very happy that Plummer Hill Road is being shimmed and overlaid. I looked down to the list of reclamation, and Moset Ave is a horrendous road. It's not just rutted, I mean, you can't drive down that road. And I look at something like Trolley Farm Road, which at $75,000, we're doing an overlay for one house at the end of the road. So the traffic on that road has to be as minimal as possible. An overlay for Moset is about $94,000 between Trolley Farm Road, the budget remaining, what we're gonna save. We could do another road, if not maybe even, miles as an overlay to just start getting more of these roads in drivable condition.
Something we can do? No, I mean, when you fact, it's kinda hard to say that we're gonna spend 75,000 on a road with one person on it, one home, when
Most set.
Moset is a drive-through road for hundreds of people. And
I would
I
also
know-
point out that's the difference in why a shim on, well, Trolley Farm's more than a shim, I mean, that whole hill went away in a flood, but Moset has a lot of traffic on it, so a shim is not gonna hold up as long
Right.
on Moset as it would.
I agree
But
with you.
even if it gives us
I
5 years worth of, 5, 6 years worth of more service to get us by, I mean, that road is pretty horrible.
A shim on Trolley Farm Road probably should last, short of a flood,
Yeah.
50 years.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah, we shouldn't have to touch
not
that
long.
again in a long time.
And I think the base coat will probably last as long, even though it's more pervious and you're gonna get more water seeping, but there's no traffic there, it's not. I mean, we have hundreds of people driving on roads every day that they're losing their suspension, their tires, but we're gonna put an overlay on a road that feeds one house.
Board, what's your? Unfortunately, we have very limited funds, and we have to make these difficult choices, and I think if we're gonna do it, we should be the ones doing it. These are, in some cases, a political decision, and I don't think it would be fair to put that on our DPW director. I'm sorry, but we're basically saying that this one road has more travel, and we're gonna opt for one versus another, and I think that's something that should come, a decision from us, not from, Paul, to put him in that spot.
Well, let me ask you a question. Where is Moset on this list?
It's down on the reclaims at the bottom. It doesn't have a number next to it, it's just, it was one we wanted to do, but the funds ran out.
Oh, I see it.
Well, I mean, you could take that same argument to portion of Addison Road. There's a portion of Addison Road, when you go right up by the farmhouse up there. You go up
This
there.
isn't important, this is the entire road. From start to finish, it is.
I understand, but have you traveled that road recently?
Which road are you talking about?
Addison Road.
No,
Over the summer, not recent, not was.
but it's that one section that is particularly bad, from Kennedy
Well,
Hill down to the power line.
exactly.
So let's fix, and I agree with you, so let's do an overlay there, so that we
I don't think you can
minimize.
do- You can't do an overlay.
But
Can't do an
I guess the
No,
point
it's
that I'm
like
trying to
6 inches
make,
deep.
the point that I'm trying to make is, the funds are limited. So instead of doing one road correctly, we're going to do several roads, for lack of a better term, half,
Baked.
whatever, okay? I don't know if that's prudent.
And I agree with you, Phil, if we were talking about doing a swap between, a section of Tibbetts Hill or a section of Montalona, but we're not. Trolley Farm Road, and I don't wanna say that, one resident is better than the other, but if you have one house and one car going in and out on a base coat that exists there now, how long do you think that road is gonna last?
I understand what you're saying, but it's a base coat, and what we're deviating then from is good engineering techniques and construction policy, because only one person lives on that, okay? That person is a taxpayer, that person is no less of a citizen than everybody else that lives anyplace else in town.
I agree, and they have a very good drivable surface that will last
But
probably 10 years or more.
what we're doing with the money that we've expended, we're going to leave it, and we're going to go against better practices, construction practices and engineering practices. And we're gonna take that money and we're going to do, as was said earlier, half-baked policies on other roads.
But half-baked is sometimes better than no baked. And I don't know, I mean,
That's just the point.
Right.
You're gonna half-bake some roads, and the other road that should've gotten baked with the final coat is not gonna get its final coat.
Okay, I think we've heard good arguments on both sides. I think, is there any other changes that you have?
Well, I'll just make that as a motion.
Okay,
I'd like to, defer Trolley Farm Road and take those funds and whatever else is required from the budget balance to do a, shim and overlay or whatever Carl would think is appropriate for Moosehead Ave.
is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All those against the motion, say nay.
Nay.
That motion passes 3-2. Are there any other motions? Any other motions?
Motion to accept the,
Oh, yes, sir.
I'd like to talk about sidewalks. Go figure.
Is there a motion to allow Selectman Fournier to continue talking about sidewalks?
No, when we left the last time, what was left was, were there any alternatives that we could do? And I don't know if you were able to come up with anything or have an idea.
What I think you threw out there was a paved shoulder, and we certainly could do a paved shoulder. I didn't have a chance to estimate what a paved shoulder would cost, but it's doable. There's that section where the slope is that we'd have to look at whether a retaining wall would be needed or whether we could just cut that down.
and that's from,
That is from the Dana's to Shaw's. And I would like to make a motion then, well, it's kinda hard because I don't have dollars, but I would like to make a motion that with the excess 194.8, that the portions needed to make the extension to the road to make that from Dana's to Shaw's be added into the road program.
Is there a second?
I'll second that for discussion.
Okay. Yes.
What would hap,
I'm gonna go Dave first and.
what would happen to the drainage from Mass Road over this bituminous sidewalk? Where would the drainage go,
It would be shed to private property.
as it is now? So your,
Some of it ponds in
so
the
your
shoulder. but-
extended roadway would just keep the drainage going in the same direction it's going now?
We're gonna make it worse?
People will argue that they're getting more water because currently there are puddles in the shoulder that would disappear and it would, so you will have some folks there that'll argue. I don't think it's a legitimate argument, but they will argue that.
Would it require any landscaping from the new pavement over to where residents' lawns are? Any,
It wouldn't require
Landscaping.
it, but if we wanted to do it, we could. I mean, right now, it's all just a big gravel, no man's land along there.
Is there another alternative, is there another alternative, just simply shouldering it appropriately to give with mid-pack or something and gravel so that it could be walked? As
That-
opposed to, I'm saying if you can raise the shoulder height up, it still becomes an impervious surface, so water can drain through it, and again, gives you a degree where you could ride a bicycle or, perhaps, certainly walk.
Yes, with the exception of that one area where that slope is. You know, there, the TOA slope and the white line are
Right.
8 inches apart. I mean, it's just, that's gonna have to be excavated back, and either the slope cut down or a little retaining wall put in.
I'd like to make a point, I'm not interested in nit pack. We talk about the high school and concrete and Grassmere, and we'll go into Penodville and we'll throw some nit pack down. I am fully against that, just to let you know that.
Right, and
It's okay.
I'd also like to make a point that, this is really not about Penardville versus the village versus Grassmere, because if we wanted to play that game, then you can start putting, sidewalks all around Grassmere, because there certainly aren't as many. There are a lot of sidewalks that, service the Penardville community as there are in the village, and most notably, for the most part, with the exception of Dana's Park to,
I would
to
like-
the Shaws, if you go the other direction, there's a whole network of sidewalks that are accessible, so it's not a question, I don't think that members, and myself or other members might be against the sidewalk issue. I think it's just a matter of with limited funds, you can only do, so much to try to, get things accomplished, so, anyway. Yeah.
Carl, can you just clarify, are you just extending the road, or will it have a lip?
No, there won't be a lip. Typically a shoulder would pitch a little more than the road, so if the road has a 1/4 inch per foot, there might be a 1/2 inch per foot across the shoulder, just to make sure the water gets away from the edge of the road, but it would, to the traveling public, it would just be an extension of the road with a white line painted on it.
It would be like Mass Road as it goes past the county farm, correct?
Yeah.
I mean, we're not
Wide shoulder.
We're not even talking a sidewalk technically, we're just talking an extension that's
So
safe.
we wouldn't be looking at a sidewalk plow or anything, it'd just be when they came and
Right.
plowed, they'd be plowing.
Plowing,
Correct.
much further
We
over.
talked about it, maybe, we talked about it last week, I think, or the week before, as it being maybe a solution or a happy medium that would widen the road to a degree, so
Allow
that when you
people to
have the
walk.
fog line, someone could walk on the other side of the fog line, or bicycle or something. I'll just say my piece, not that I'm not in favor of it, but without knowing what the cost is, I'm not in favor of it, so once we get a cost from Carl, then I don't mind voting on it, but that's just me, so, but we can certainly, we'll entertain the vote. Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second, all those in favor of that motion say aye.
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 All those against? Nay? You're a nay? Motion passes 3-2. Okay. Now we need a motion to adopt the road program, with the amendments that were made this evening. Do I have that motion? Moved by Selectman Campusano, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Selectman Fournier. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those against?
Nay.
We have a 4-1.
Question for Carl.
Yeah.
Carl, on the portable traffic lights, is that, a 2-unit or a 4-unit?
4-unit.
4-unit, excellent.
4-unit.
All right. Let's see what else we have here. Approval of the paving bid specifications. 8B in your packets.
Motion to authorize the public works director to advertise for bid for road resurfacing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. Wonderful. All right. Get that done. Let's talk about old business. Highway Safety Committee recommendations. We had 3 outstanding. Okay, the first one is, the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit on all dead-end streets. And, let's get to, any questions?
Comment.
Okay, comment, fire away.
Just a clarification first, in the minutes, it appeared that I was looking to have these items held off for a week. But the email that I had sent, and it really pertains to more than this, we had talked about this in the past. It would be nice if we could get items like this early, a week or 2 early, so that we have time to digest this information. Like, for instance, these were January 25th, 2010. That's when the meeting was held, and it would just be nice. And that was this was one thing in particular, as well as the road plan. But I was referring in general to large items like this. If we could get them a week or more in advance, so if we have questions, we can talk to department heads. We can do our own information gathering, just so I feel I can make a more informed or a better informed decision. So that was, I just wanted to clarify that on the minutes. As far as this, if, with the board's permission, I would like to offer a compromise, because sometimes we tend to think in absolutes, and encompass everything. I for one am in favor of, lower speed limits on certain dead-end streets. And to give you, some of the reasoning, there are some areas, some streets that are fairly narrow, fairly dense, small yards, where the chances of, a child or someone having to walk out into the street suddenly could occur. And the stopping distance, and this is just using generic, friction, coefficients of friction and, reflex time between a 25-mile-an-hour car of 85 feet to a 35-mile-an-hour car to 136 feet, could make a difference. I'm really not worried about speeders, because that's gonna happen no matter what the speed limit is. I'm talking about the normal speed of vehicles of most people that will abide by the speed limit. Going 35 in some of those smaller streets is too fast. What I would ask the board is for their indulgence to allow me to go through and come back to the board with a rationale for what types of streets, and by that I mean, I think there was 83 streets originally, and the cost was, I don't know, $17,000 estimated. But if we look at just the dead-end streets that are high density within the compact areas of a certain length, certain street width, that list rapidly goes down to 5 or 6, 8 streets. And at $43 a sign, you're looking at less than $500. And it gives us a rationale. It's not like, I think there was a comment last week about, you know, if we say yes, then everybody's gonna come in and want signs because they have them now on the spice streets and, but if we set rationale, we'd be doing the same thing that you're gonna do tonight if you vote against this, is say no. It happened on one street, somebody else wants it, you said no. But if we set a rationale that if a street is of this width, if a street is of this density. Or length. It gives us some criteria and there is some basis for it. I think in some streets, particularly in the Pinardville area, that there's a lot of cars parked on the street, the yards are very small, the streets are narrow, they're 17 feet or less in width, and the odds are if a child runs out into the street, they're gonna run into the path of a car if it's coming.
Can I ask, if I could, the interesting thing that I saw when I read this, and if I'm just gonna read it into the record here, the last paragraph. Mr. Peralt addressed the committee on his reasons for wanting a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit on all dead-end streets in town. This committee had a lengthy discussion on the town-wide speed limit proposal. After reviewing the police officer's report and considering the statements from those present, the committee voted 4-0 not to recommend a 25-mile-an-hour limit on dead-end streets in town, and will have this addressed in the town-wide speed limit. Now, from what I heard from the chief, was that they're looking to revisit our town-wide speed limit. As you know, that was rejected last year, the year before. And the reason why it was rejected was because it was that same blanket approach. And I think that kind of coincides with what you were saying. And what the chief was articulating to me a week or two ago was that, you know, a 30-mile-an-hour zone will work in the vast majority of situations. However, there are some roads in town that should be 35. That makes sense to keep it there, you know, their major type arteries, et cetera. But if we were to do everything 30, that wouldn't make sense. So, do we want to ask Highway Safety to say, okay, as part of your recommendation to go forward with a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit in the town, with exceptions that are gonna be a little bit more, maybe some more of these primary type roads, but then also come up with a criteria, as you suggested, for certain 25-mile-an-hour speed limits on dead-end streets, based upon what you were saying, then we just all do it at once. This way, it's kind of consistent all across. We set up a criteria. For the most part, we can recognize that it's prudent to have a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit town-wide. So as you enter the town, you know that it's a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit, unless otherwise posted. You would then post certain roads at 35 because it makes sense. They're capable of handling that speed, whether it be sight lines or their major arteries. And then other streets, as you mentioned, might be 25, whether they be dead end or others, simply because of where they're located, the density, et cetera. And we tackle all of it at one time, but we put it into the venue where it really belongs.
I would welcome, Selectman Campusano's analysis of the other criteria on this list of dead-end roads, and then that could be a statement from this board to the highway to do exactly that. If we selected certain dead-end roads that should have signage, that would send a message to the highway.
Well, if I could clarify.
Please.
Mr. Chairman, it's kind of disjointed when you look at this, because this memorandum, which is dated January 25th, 2010, says the committee voted 4-0 not to recommend a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit on dead-end streets, and will have this addressed in the townwide speed limit. If you actually go to the June 3rd, 2009 minutes, when this came up, the Public Works Director made a motion to deny Mr. Peralt's request for 25 miles per hour. Ruth Gage seconded. There was never a vote. Steve Griffin made a motion to approve 35-mile-an-hour speed limit except where noted, and that the committee will study the exceptions and have a workshop with the Board of Selectmen. That passed 4-0. Workshop on townwide speed limit set for Monday, June 8th, 9 a.m. at Town Hall. Never happened. So this is referring to something that was talked about in June. A date was set for a workshop that never occurred, so there isn't anything in the works for this.
For what?
For this discussion of a townwide speed limit.
My understanding is that they're working on it.
You're saying the minutes.
The workshop that was proposed never occurred. That was our workshop, June 8th. And again, I would then ask the question is, why is it being worked on? Came to this board, we voted it down. Where did a request come for them to be working on it? Highway safety works on either a request from a citizen or request from us. Why is it being revisited?
I thought that the board, the committee was given the, suggestion to revisit it, and that what the chairman mentioned, the blanket approach was the issue, and I thought that was some of the feedback that was given back to the chief. That was my recollection of it, and we had no problem with them coming back with a revised plan. The issue was that it was too much of a blanket approach. That was my understanding.
So then they wouldn't be coming back with a townwide speed
No,
limit.
that they could.
They could,
That's
but there would be exceptions to the 30-mile-an-hour.
Right, that was what was proposed.
No,
Originally.
okay, originally it was a 30 miles an hour townwide speed limit.
With exceptions. I think the map is still on the wall. It was with, unless otherwise posted.
Maybe you're right.
But the way it was posted was what was rejected, and if they came back with a different plan, that would fine, we would entertain it. That's the way I understood it.
All right, let's assume that history is what history is. How do we want to approach it now? I mean, clearly, this is, I just want to focus in on what our goals were. Assuming that that's our 2,000, how much resources do we want to devote our own board to doing this? Because as again, if we go ahead and we do this and we're part of this, that's gonna be that's time that's gonna be spent elsewhere. Do we wanna put it back, give direction, say, we want you to look at this list and come up with exceptions? You know, this board believes that there should be certain reasons or criteria established for needing or necessity for a 25-mile-an-hour, I don't know.
Can I ask a question? Okay, first of all, which is, Nick, you mentioned that some streets, and you said some streets in Pinardville should be lower than 20, what do you?
Should be 25.
Well, the streets of Pinardville is 25, state statute.
In an urban compact.
Those are all by state statute, they're automatically 25. That's what's been a misconception all along. To say that dead-end streets are 35 miles an hour in Bernardville unless they're otherwise posted is a misstatement of fact.
I was under the impression that it's 35 unless posted.
Bernardville is 25-mile zone because when you have frontage of
Yeah, it's urban
20,
compact,
200-foot frontage or less, state statute is 25 miles an hour. Bernardville, Orchard Street that I lived on is 25 it's not posted, it's a 25 miles an hour street. All the streets in Bernardville are 25 miles an hour.
Okay, so now we have an urban compact area here in the village, which starts at High Street, Center Street. So are all of those streets 25?
I believe so.
So then it's just really, it's not a matter of changing the speed limit, it's just having some signs posted.
Well, but wait a minute.
Sorry, sign proliferation, right, Steve?
Yeah, but if there is a street where a resident comes in and says, people are speeding up and down my street, or there's children, I'm afraid of, to put a sign up, one sign at the entrance to that street, we're not changing the ordinance. If they're already 25, we're just putting up a sign to remind people that that's the speed limit.
Do you really think they need to be reminded?
I think most people will follow what the speed limit sign is, and I would guess that most people think it's 35. I thought it was 35, I didn't know it was 25 in an urban compact area.
State statute, if 200-foot frontage, if you have houses, the frontage of on the houses, on the road, houses are 200 feet or less apart, it's 25 miles an hour.
I'm gonna go back to Scott.
Hold on.
Go back to
Sue, are you looking that up?
Last week, we had the discussion here because of sign proliferation, signs are ignored. You know, taking that to the opposite extreme, to fulfill what Selectman Capisano said and make it, you know, a sign, a banner overhead. You are now entering the 25-mile-an-hour zone, period. But, to make it a sign stand out. But, no, I'm just pulling your leg. Something different has to come out of this discussion.
Steve?
I understand what you're saying. But I'd like to say once again, I think regarding people going down dead-end streets or when they drive in Penarville, et cetera, up in those streets also, I think people they know automatically that they are in an area where due caution is needed. In fact, 25 miles an hour sometimes might even be too fast, depending on where you're driving and how the configuration of cars parked, et cetera. And I don't think someone needs a sign to tell me, by the way, I'm going down a residential street, it's a dead end, there's cars, there's people, et cetera. I think people exercise due caution all the time. I'm not sure an extra sign is going to take care of that problem. I mean, if there is a problem. The other thing is, I'm gonna jump back to Scott, where this is one of those issues that I believe goes back to the police department and another committee where they look at it and they say, hey, let's take a look at this, because I think when we've already looked at for what we wanna do this year, maybe that's not on the top of our list, but it should go to a proper committee. And I know that when the police chief was here, if I remember correctly, he said they did go and monitor some of those streets, is that correct?
That they did.
And they didn't find a problem.
Correct.
And so why am I spending money where a problem does not exist, is my question.
And again, I looked at the streets that were monitored, and a lot of the streets were rural streets that I don't think should be on the list for lower speed limits. And they were monitoring for mostly, all right, let's just say Juniper, 25 miles an hour. Most of the people were going 25. So if it had to be lowered to 25, most people are going that speed anyway, but you still have some people going 30, 35. So you're just going to reinforce what the majority here, at least in these streets, are doing. And I think you'll also slow down those other people that may think, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't know that in the compact area, if it is in fact state statute, that it's 25, and I would bet that most people think it's higher than that.
You said Juniper?
Yeah, that was one of them that was,
And that is the outlier on this whole list as being 0.8 of a mile long. That's
Not
the
to mention that
that's
list
the
is not even
longest
out
road
yet.
on this whole list. There are so many roads on this list that, you can see from one end of the road to the other, and you won't even have time to accelerate up to 25 miles an
Mhm.
hour.
I think part of this highway safety committees, when they look at this, a dead-end street versus a through street. A through street gets people from one point in one community to another point in another community. The people who travel on a dead-end street are either residents, somebody visiting, or the occasional person who turns down the street not realizing it's a dead-end street and is lost. But the overwhelming majority of the people that travel that street, they live on that street, or they're visiting somebody on that street. Does that warrant the signage? And I think that's part of what goes in their decision process.
That's correct.
Okay.
And they, Mr. Chairman, they had to make a black and white on the phrase "all streets."
Yep. Not on an
So
individual
they weren't
street.
given the leeway to say.
This
as,
particular street needed it.
Selectman Capasano might have said that, there's 10 out of these 83 that might be prudent.
All right, so we have a request for 25 miles per hour on all dead-end streets in town. And that was not recommended by the Highway Safety Committee, and I would need a motion from this
Make a
board to
motion that
take
we
action.
accept the recommendation of the Highway Safety Committee.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second by Selectman Fournier. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those against the motion say nay.
no.
My comment with this was that the petitioner should be notified that should he wish to proceed with a sign on his own street, then he should proceed with that. It should also be noted, maybe in correspondence to him, that with the confirmation from the police department that the area in which he resides on Spring Street is in an urban compact zone, and therefore it is a 25-mile-an-hour zone.
I would not presume the rationale for his suggestion. I think his suggestion was townwide, and you shouldn't presume otherwise, no. He was trying to make a safety recommendation for the whole town, and we should just leave it there.
Yes, sir.
I'd request the board's permission to, work on an alternative, list of dead-end streets for signage.
Is there a
to
second,
present
is
to the
there
board.
I would support that.
support for that?
Yes. And that would be good information to provide back to the sign committee, traffic committee sign. So, as they deliberate on something similar, at least would understand where we're coming from.
Is there approval, is there, okay with the board proceeding in that direction?
What is it that was specific?
To, authorize Selectman Campusano to establish criteria.
Suggested
Suggested
criteria that
criteria.
I'll bring to the board, not binding, it would be the board's, it'll come to the board,
Which would then be passed on to Highway Safety.
if the board so.
Okay. And keep in mind too, that the action that was taken was that there was gonna be a workshop with the Board of Selectmen on this issue was coming to us anyway.
Did we get a date for that?
Never did, but that was what you referenced, so. Next is, this was a yield sign on Lynchville Park and the fork with Cove Street. The committee discussed this area in question. After reviewing the police officer's report, the committee voted 4-0 to recommend a yield sign to be erected on Lynchville Park at the fork with Cove. The committee also recommends a yield sign to be erected at Chattel and Lynchville Park. Any discussion here? All right, do I need a motion?
Make a motion to accept the Highway Safety.
There's a motion to accept the Highway Safety Committee's recommendation. Is there a second? There's a second by Selectman Campusano. Any discussion? All those in favor of this motion say aye.
Aye.
All those against this motion say nay. Aye. You're an aye. I'm a nay.
Nay.
You're a nay. Motion passes 3-2. Next is revisit a request for a speed limit sign on Pollard Road. The committee, Mr. Edwards was in attendance and advised the committee that he wanted to amend his request to a handicap sign. After a brief discussion, the committee voted 3-1, with Carl Quorum voting in the negative, to recommend the installation of a handicap sign to be placed at the discretion of DPW. Need a motion here.
Motion to accept the recommendation.
Motion to accept the recommendation, is there a second?
Yes.
Seconded by Selectman Pierce. Any further discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor of the of the motion to recommend, say aye.
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 All those, nay, say nay.
Nay.
Nay. That motion then fails. So that is not recommended. All right. Did that. Is there any new business? No new business. Any other business that anyone would like to, anything that the board member would like on an agenda for next week, aside from sidewalks?
I'm not sure when we wanna do it, but we've talked a lot of dates. How are we organizing that and making sure that we're going forward? As of right now, there are a lot of dates set out there for different things.
Yep, and I think we have to have it, the date of a workshop, and, we did, chat about that. So does everybody have their calendars? We had chatted about a, morning session, and Sue went back to, presumably the department heads. And, looks like we're looking at, Monday and Tuesday are kinda off limits, to a degree, so we're looking at Wednesday, Thursdays, or Fridays. And starting at 7 o'clock and going till about 9.
We have someone on vacation. 13.
I'm sorry, can you give me a date again, please?
All right, let's start with, next Wednesday would be the 14th.
We have someone on vacation 13th and 25th.
All right, is that a major department head?
Yes.
Next Wednesday would be the 28th.
Okay, that's 2 weeks.
Didn't we just talk about something on the 28th?
You know what? I don't think, there's always gonna be somebody who can't attend a meeting.
No, I'm asking, didn't we just have a discussion about something and the 28th, we set the that day
We
was?
set the 23rd for October for a budget thing.
We got October 23rd, correct.
I just don't know if we're ever gonna get around, someone being on vacation, right? Or someone's
Oh.
work schedule conflicting, or there being an emergency, I don't know, I just don't.
You said October.
No, I was talking about the October 23rd for the budget, that's the only date we did set.
Is it, wait, we talked about, did we set it October 23rd?
Yes, we did.
We're gonna put that out to the budget committee to make sure they can
Yeah, that'll
also
come back.
get it
You
out
want this
early.
workshop rather soon, right?
Yeah, I think.
The sooner the better.
Every time that we put things off, it
Correct.
puts everything else off,
Yep.
so.
I agree, that's why I wanna,
Thursday the 15th?
Thursday, the 15th. That's not really good for me. I'm just being.
Timing's everything, timing's everything.
That's not a good meeting for me either.
I was looking at it. Yeah.
Oh, you were.
No, Wednesday or
This
Friday.
morning?
What?
This Friday morning,
This Friday morning.
right?
How do you know you can get all the people there?
Cause
They work.
that wasn't one of the days they said they couldn't hit.
I'm okay this
I'm
Friday.
okay.
Yeah, right after the planning board, Jess, thanks.
Oh, sorry, that's right, we try
That's
not to
okay.
do it on.
You can come in later.
This Friday morning?
Yeah, maybe I'll just stay here, camp out here. No.
Your department heads?
This Friday
They-
morning.
They just said not on Monday or Tuesday.
I'm looking. I'm good.
This
I have-
Friday morning.
Yeah, I have to back up my files, but I can change that.
7 a.m.?
I'm just messing with you.
What's this one for, this workshop?
Goals?
It's to review our goals, yeah.
Friday, 7 o'clock,
Friday, 7 o'clock in the morning,
and we expect to be here till,
no later than 9.
Oh,
Okay.
9 then, good.
Why?
How about
No,
8?
originally
No.
you had said till 10.
No, let's go
And
9.
I said, hey, you can do it in 2 hours.
Yeah.
okay, no, I'm just asking, I'm fine, I'm good.
Well, would you rather start earlier?
Yes, I can.
Start earlier.
I can start earlier.
Okay.
You're really gonna have to sleep here.
Yeah, no, because, yeah, you're good for that, because you're behind.
Okay.
Still 3 hours behind.
He won't be behind by tomorrow, though.
Are there any other, and actually bring your calendars, on Friday, cause then we're gonna start to plug in some other dates too.
So could you request from Neil that the network be on
I can.
tomorrow?
Plan. Okay, so we have, if there's any other business, we'll go into, non-public.
Motion to go into non-public session under RSA 91A:3, paragraph 2, subparagraph D.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Alright, all those in favor say aye.
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 Roll call vote. Okay, yes?
Yes.
Yes.